camera. Ready? Okay, here we go. Ooh, that sounds hollow. Better. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Hialeah Planning and Zoning Board meeting for Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. Well, actually, we do have a land use item. So we'll hear the land use item first and then planning and zoning.
Do you want to do one first?
Is that the way we're gonna do it? LU first? Land use amendment first and then the,
First, then we're going to go around
Item number 8.
item number 8. They are with the baby, so.
okay, so okay, you go ahead and you
Yeah.
direct us there.
Yeah.
All right, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone in the audience, electronic audience. Everyone, please rise for the invocation and the pledge of allegiance. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity that you've granted us here tonight. We ask that you please watch over us as we go through these items in front of us. Please allow us or help us to make the right decisions for the city and all of those involved. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Smooth.
Meeting guidelines. The following guidelines apply to today's Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Any person, whether participating via the web platform, telephonic conferencing, or physical presence at City Hall, interested in making comments or posing questions on any item on the agenda may do so during the meeting. Members of the public may hear the meeting live through telephonic conferencing using any telephone or cellular phone service. A smart device or computer are not necessary to participate in the meeting if you join by phone. All persons participating via the web platform will be muted during the meeting until called upon to be heard. Participation through Zoom requires a computer or smart mobile device with a microphone and web camera. The participant may elect to participate in the meeting using audio only or appear through both audio and video. The video function of all participants appearing through the video will be turned off until called upon to be heard. All lobbyists must register with the Planning and Zoning Board prior to item being heard. A maximum of 4 speakers in favor and 4 speakers in opposition will be allowed to address the Planning and Zoning Board on any item. Each speaker's comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Roll call. Mr. Di Perez?
Here.
Mr. Ramon? Mr. Iglesias is absent. Mr. Jimenez?
Here.
Mr. Ulloa?
Here.
Mr. Casanova?
Here.
Mrs. Enriquez? Here. We have a quorum. Administration of oath to all applicants and anyone who will be speaking before the board on any item.
Do we have anyone on Zoom? I think Mestre, yeah, there he goes. He's moving his camera around. All righty. All right, everyone, please stand, raise your right hand for the invocation to be sworn in, please. Anyone that's going to speak in front of the board?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth before this board?
Thank you. I see Mr. Mestre with his hand up in the air. Thank you. Let the record show that the answer was on the affirmative.
Summary minutes or a copy of the audio file of the proceedings before the Planning and Zoning Board shall be prepared and submitted to City Council before its hearing. The Planning and Zoning Board recommendations for the following public hearing requests will be heard by the City Council at a scheduled meeting of Tuesday, March 14, 2023. LU1, small scale map amendment from industrial to transit-oriented development district. Property is located at 2691 East 11th Avenue, Hialeah zoned M1 Industrial District. Applicant, Metro Station LLC.
Hello, Melissa.
No, it's only
Make
one.
your
Gandhi,
microphone's
so,
on.
so the
Is the microphone red or green?
It is now green. Thank you. I do have a presentation for
Okay,
you all.
identify yourself, please.
Melissa Tapinas, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, Miami. And at the will of the board, I can have one presentation both for this item as well as item 2.
Good. Let her read it into the record and we'll give you the floor.
The property in this application includes two adjacent lots located at the southeast intersection of East 11th Avenue and East 27th Street. The south side of the property is adjacent to the Hialeah Tri-Rail Metro Rail transfer station. The applicant is before the city requesting a land use amendment from industrial to transit-oriented development district to be able to redevelop the site with a new 55-unit mixed-use development in accordance with TOD regulations. The requested land use is consistent with Goal 4 of the City of Hialeah Comprehensive Plan related to transit stations redevelopment, as well with all related objectives and policies. Based on the analysis of the existing infrastructure, the property, if developed at its maximum intensity, meets concurrency. The recommendation is approval.
Thank you. Melissa?
Thank you. Ms. Ellis, thank you. So I'm here on behalf of Metro Station LLC, the owner of the property located at 2691 East 11th Avenue. We're excited to be before you this evening with a mixed-use transit-oriented development project consistent with the city's vision for the Hialeah Transfer Station Subdistrict. Or maybe, okay, you got it. Thank you so much. It's slide 2, please. So the aerial photograph that will be on the screen shortly shows the boundary of the Hialeah Transfer Station Subdistrict in blue and the subject property in yellow. As you'll see, it's immediately abutting the Hialeah Transfer Station outlined in pink. The property is also steps away from premier destinations of employment such as Hialeah Hospital, Leon Medical Centers, and Hialeah Park Casino. As you'll see in the next slide, back in 2016, we collaborated with the city of Hialeah to establish this TOD legislation. The goal was and is to promote pedestrian-friendly mixed-use development in walking distance with high-capacity rapid transit stations, such as the Hialeah Transfer Station. This area is designated high-rise. So in order to avoid a wholesale rezoning and ensure development occurs consistent with the city's vision throughout time, we're here before to ask for the land use and zoning to be amended to TOD. Next slide, please. So you can see that the property is currently designated industrial and zoned M1. The land uses to the north have already been amended to TOD, which is exactly what we're requesting as part of this application. Next slide. So we have a few requests. It's a land use plan amendment from industrial to TOD, a rezoning from M1 to TOD, as well as a variance of a 5-foot front setback on East 11th Avenue, where 0 feet is required. And the goal is to provide more of an arcade feel.
She's not on. Her camera is not on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. Sorry about that. Next slide.
There you go.
You'll see the existing conditions on the property. It's currently developed with a 1-story outdated structure that served as a gas station and a cafe. Next slide. And the project will advance the city's vision to revitalize the area with a modern mixed-use building less than 100 feet, again, from high-capacity tri-county transit service. Next slide. So you can see here that the property has a unique location immediately abutting the Hialeah Transit Station. It has direct connections to West Palm Beach, all the way to Miami International Airport, the county's Metro Rail system, which connects residents from Medley, from the west side of the county, all the way to the south and Dadeland, with stops along employment hubs, including the Health District, downtown Miami, and Brickell. According to the Tri-Rail website, the South Florida Regional Transportation Authority is extending Tri-Rail commuter rail service to provide this new direct access from the Tri-Rail's northernmost station at Magnolia Park in Palm Beach County to its southernmost station at Miami Central Station in downtown Miami through the Bright Line. Next slide, please. So the development program is consistent with the other projects approved in this area. It includes 55 residential units and approximately 1,100 square feet of ground floor commercial uses in an 8-story building. The applicant is providing 20 spaces on site, where 58 spaces are required. The balance of the spaces will be paid into the city's parking trust fund or provided within 1,000 feet of the property, where the developer has 2 similar projects. One will be before you in just a few minutes. Next slide. So that you can see here that the proposed site plan with commercial uses is at the southwest corner of the site, and the residential units begin on the second level. Next slide. And here you can see a rendering from the southeast corner of 27th Street and East 11th Avenue. In sum, the project proposes to create a vibrant ground floor commercial space fueled by residential uses on the upper floors. It will create a nice pedestrian streetscape to the Hialeah transfer station. As a result, the approval of these applications before you today will revitalize the area, attract young professionals seeking modern accommodations in a mixed-use setting in close proximity to public transportation and high-paying jobs. So we believe that this project checks all the boxes within the city's comprehensive plan, the city's vision as part of creating this TOD legislation. With all that in mind, we respectfully request your recommendation for approval this evening. We're available for any questions and respectfully request time for rebuttal if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. This property, is right adjacent to the tracks, right?
Yeah, it used to be a gas station many
Right.
years ago, and then it was converted into a convenience store.
Okay. All right. Any comments or questions from the board?
The parking, you said there's 28 spaces are being made where 50 are required.
20 or 58.
Okay, so what are we gonna do with the remaining spaces?
Yes, so the TOD legislation that's in the city code allows for a payment in lieu of actual providing parking, with the idea that the city will be able to provide for shared parking facilities throughout this new district, including at the Tri-Rail station, which has 40 parking spaces, about 40 parking spaces just abutting the site. The goal is to have people who don't necessarily want to drive. With that said, I'll be presenting another project, Metro Park 2, which is within 1,000 feet. Metro Park 1 is also within 1,000 feet. So they both have surplus parking, which I'll present to you in the event that people actually do want to park. We want to make sure that there's no parking within the rights of ways and things of that nature. And we will be working with the city to enforce those regulations, of course.
In this case, will at least the residents have one parking space each?
So no, the answer is no, the math does not add up. So the idea would be that they would either be off-site or not have parking. So it really is for people who want to use public transportation. For, young professionals, doctors, financiers, et cetera, who are going to the health district to Brickell. It's literally steps away. And we also like just a small convenience cafe at the ground floor, because that's something that's missing from this transfer station, and something that's important as you make that walk to public transit, to have somewhere to get a bottle of water, et cetera. So that's something we made sure that it was located on the floor plan abutting the transfer station. Thank you.
We're going to go through the detail. This is the land use.
Yeah.
So we have the item of the zoning at this meeting too, so we're going to go through all those details.
Okay.
My presentation is for both. I'm happy to make it again or answer any questions related to the site plan.
Does that answer your question?
Fair enough.
Anyone else? Any more comments, questions from the board? Anyone in the audience have a comment or question on this item? Anyone in the electronic audience? This is a part of the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve Casanova.
Second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Casanova, second by Mr. Jimenez. Mr. Ramon,
Yes.
Ms. Enriquez,
You could do it. The parking is it's weird. Yes. Yes.
Mr. D. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa,
For land use, yes.
Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
item has been approved.
Thank you.
So if it's okay with the board, if we can now hear item number 8.
Okay, so this closes to the part of the land use meeting. We're going to go ahead and skip down to what, item number 8?
Item number 8, yes.
Already, everyone is still under open. Everybody's good to go.
Before I do that, item number one, let's start with item number one. Approval of Planning and Zoning Board Summary Agenda of February eighth, 2023, as submitted.
Need a motion and a second, please?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ulloa, second by Ms. Enriquez. Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Ms. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez.
Yes.
Item has been approved. A written decision and resolution will be prepared and presented for review to the city council. The city council is authorized to affirm with conditions or override the decisions by resolution. After the resolution is adopted, contact a member of the city clerk's office to obtain a copy of the final decision and resolution. Upon your receipt of the final decision and resolution, contact the building permit to obtain your required building permit. Summary minutes or a copy of the audio files of proceedings before the Planning and Zoning Board shall be prepared and submitted to the city council before its hearing. The Planning and Zoning Board recommendations for the following public hearing requests will be heard by the city council at a scheduled meeting of Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. Item number 8. Variance permit to allow 32 parking spaces where 65 parking spaces are required. Property is located at 7963 West 28th Avenue, Hialeah zoned M1 Industrial District. Applicant, Top Tier, Christopher Gutierrez.
Name and address, please.
Christopher Gutierrez, 7963 West 28th Avenue, Hialeah, Florida, 33016.
Thank you.
The property in this application is located on the east side of West 28th Avenue, north of West 29th Street, next to the I-75 overpass. The property has been developed jointly with the adjacent property to the north, sharing the driveway and parking stalls. The site was developed in 1990 with 15,736 square feet of warehouse base with ancillary offices and 32 parking spaces, 16 parking spaces more than the minimum parking requirement. Commercial uses are allowed on M1 zone properties, provided that they comply with the commercial parking requirement that is 1 parking space for each 200 square feet of gross floor area and 1 parking space for each 150 square feet for restaurants and cafeterias. Since there were extra parking spaces on site, many of the warehouses were allowed to house commercial uses. However, the parking availability has not been tracked over time. As a result, at this time, only 4 bays are used as warehouses, and all the rest house commercial uses. The current tenant mix requires 65 parking spaces, where 32 are provided. The applicant tenant of a 1,000 square feet bay is now before the city requesting a parking variance to be able to legalize a barber shop that he built without the benefit of a building permit on the bay labeled 7963. The submitted application includes a survey including the existing parking spaces, the layout of the barber shop to be legalized, and a list of all the area and uses on each bay. The overall parking shortage has not been addressed. Since the parking provided at the site cannot fulfill the parking requirement of the existing uses, allowing a new commercial use will worsen the situation and should not be approved. The recommendation is denial.
Thank you. You have the floor. Any comments or questions?
I may speak?
Any
Okay.
comments or questions?
Yes, so I know that we have 32 parking spaces where 65 spaces are required. Our barber shop is only 2 barbers and they work part-time. They only work around like three days of the week. And the parking spaces have never been an issue with none of our neighboring businesses. And I even have a signed paper with everybody's address and their signatures approving like that. There's no issues, never been an issue, and we all share our parking spots in the whole entire property. And also, I don't know if it shows there, but it's a joint business. It's a sporting goods store, and then there's the barbershop. The sporting goods store is basically a shoe store, which we sell majority of only online sales. So that doesn't parking spaces. And like I said, parking has never been an issue with any of our neighbors. There's never been a tow truck called. So I would recommend, I would appreciate it if anybody, if you guys could understand the situation and approve.
I don't understand. This is like a warehouse bay, if you will.
Yes.
They occupy just a small space of that bay. And if I understand him correctly, it is a multi-use structure, if you will, just your bay has
Yes.
different businesses in it.
As the sporting goods store, which is an online shoe store, and then the barber shop, which is two barbershops.
Online shoe store,
It's an online shoe store.
not a walk-in.
Well, we have a storefront.
Okay. The minimum requirement is for the entire structure or for the, or just for his?
We have a list of all the uses, and that's how we calculated the parking. Some bays are used as industrial, only 4 bays, and the rest are used for commercial businesses. There is also like a cafeteria there that takes more parking. So since the shopping center has one folio number and is one property, this accounts for all the parking spaces in the shopping center.
So that's the rub. He's a renter.
Yes, he's a tenant.
He's a tenant.
He's a tenant who had a hardship because when he started this business, he came to the city and he got the license without having DERM approval, was one of those licenses. So he has been dealing with code enforcement and enforcement for a long time. So he has a hardship, but I have to write a report that is objective, and the objectiveness is in the quantification, and the number of parking spaces are not enough.
May I speak?
Okay, now I'm beginning to see a little bit of the light, because if he only has two barbers, 2 chairs, what's the most amount of customers you can have at a time? 4?
Well, I
2,
mean,
1 on each chair?
yeah, so
waiting.
our barbers work by appointments only. The customers book the appointment, they come get the haircut and leave. Also, I wanted to say beforehand that when I first started my business in that location, it was only a sporting goods store. It was nothing else. And then I had no idea that there was, a parking issue that would have to be approved for a barbershop in a warehouse. So before I proceeded to, I should have came to the city first, and I should have talked with zoning to see if I could do a barbershop there, but I didn't do it that way from, lack of experience. And I just went ahead and I did the barbershop. And then after I tried getting the license, but I've always had a business there, and, my sporting goods store license is good. But to answer your question, yes, basically our barbers work by appointments only, and it's the customers come in, get the haircut and leave. At max, there's one person waiting for when that person gets up, he sits down in the chair and he leaves, and so forth.
I see your point. Historically, let's just assume that you booked to the max. So you got your 2 barbers, 2 chairs, 1 customer, the barbers. Okay,
Right.
They drive.
Yes.
Okay, so they need parking. The 2 customers are on the chair. They need parking. They work by appointment only. Typically, the customer will come in a little bit early.
Right.
Okay, so that is yet another 1 or 2 needed parking spaces that are now. So now you're talking 2 barbers, 2 customers, and possibly 2 more waiting. So how many parking spots does he have now?
Well, since there are 32 parking spaces in the total allocation, he has 1. But for the use that for the sporting goods and the barbershop, he needs 5 for his 1,000 square feet bay.
Okay, and I see the dilemma. I see that there was a hardship, there was somebody didn't follow through or dropped the ball as far as the licensing is concerned. Now he is in a situation where he is coming forth to legalize or make it good, in other words.
Of course.
Make it good. Um, I'm concerned at the fact that, does he have the authority?
Yes, from my landlord,
From the landlord
I
to
have the paper here
to make the-
from his consent, yes. I also have the consent of all the neighbors from the building and surrounding buildings as well. Like I said, I have it right here with me. It has their name, their bay number, their name, signature and date, and notarized.
Is that part of the record, or do you have that?
The application.
That list of.
I have it here with me.
That, no, I would need that.
Okay, well, we'll need a copy of that. You know, whether we go yay or nay, we
Right.
will need a copy of that because that's gonna help you, you know,
Of course.
on your next step. Okay, you've answered my questions and my concerns, so anyone else on the board?
Through the
Okay.
chair. Deborah, if instead of industrial, it would have been commercial, would the parking spaces be satisfied or no?
No, if this was industrial and was developed as industrial, and the problem is that there were some extra parking space to allow some commercial uses, but they allow too many commercial uses. So now they have more commercial uses than industrial
Okay.
uses and more parking demand.
But if they would apply to change it to commercial, like they did for Balsang, that they changed it from industrial
But
to
they are
commercial?
For a huge parking variance. In the other case is an industrial property that is changing for commercial. You're going to see today and analyze it, and they are coming with a huge parking variance. So some conditions are being imposed there. In this case, I understand his hardship. I made my report, but maybe what you can do is see what limitations you can impose that the owner of the property will need to abide by those and sign a declaration of restrictions, and maybe reduce the number of chairs to only one chair, one barber, restrict the days of operation or the times of operation, and make sure of how many employees he will have, how many employees he will have in the other business, to at least have some limitations, because once he gets the barbershop license, if there are no limitations, tomorrow someone can come and put there 5 chairs, 6 chairs.
I see.
So if you're willing to approve, you will have to think on the limitations that he will have to, the owner will have to proffer in a declaration of
I understand.
restriction.
Mr. Gutierrez, how long have you
Just-
been in business?
I've been in business, are you asking regarding the barber shop? or-
Yeah, the barbershop.
The barber shop, I'd say like 3 years. 4 years. Like as soon as we started the barber shop, that's when everything started. We first went through the variance before COVID, and I turned in all the papers. We're supposed to have this meeting right before COVID, and COVID hit in the middle of everything, and I lost all my money from the whole variance situation. And I had to do everything all over again, and I did everything again, and I'm here now.
Is this like your only job or?
This is not my only job. I guess I'm a young entrepreneur. And I make money through reselling shoes, online. I have my sources of income, but I do rely on the barbershop, and my barbers also do rely on me as well to be able to provide the space that they have for themselves.
Because what I see, what concerns me is that you seem like a good man that's trying to fight for your business and get ahead. And this is kind of like beyond your control. Like, you don't know, you can't really control the variances here, or this is more like an issue with the shopping center owner. And to me, it seems like you've tried to do everything in your power to do the right thing.
Well, of course, as far as like our neighboring businesses, there is a cafeteria, and there's absolutely zero conflict between the cafeteria and us. And there's zero conflict between any of our other neighboring businesses and us and the parking. And, I cannot say anymore that there's never been any issues with parking ever. And like I said, I even have the papers here to prove it with their signature.
Okay, we do have a copy of the authorization that you're talking about from the landlord. We will, however, before the end of the night, if you can take a minute or whatever, of course, we'll need a copy of those
Yes.
letters of, your neighbors and what have you. We will need a copy of
Okay.
that. You had a question?
Chair. Deborah, a real quick question. since he's joining two businesses, that's why they're requiring that he needs even more parking spaces,
No,
like
the,
less
the parking is for the area.
for the
of
one bay,
Yeah,
regardless.
yeah, regardless, yes.
Maybe, I mean, he says he's got the signature from the landlord itself, and from every business owner there that.
He
he's been-
has, yeah, he has approval from the landlord to
To present the
represent the
application.
property, the application of the property. He also claims that he has signatures from the adjacent neighbors that they're okay with the ongoing business that he has right now, so. Oh, like I said, I repeat myself, all we need
Then
is,
he will
please,
need the signature of the landlord. with
Yes.
The declaration of restriction.
I have here, it says, this letter is given to Christopher Gutierrez. He has requested this letter for him to seek approval for a variance application to get his business approval at the above location. He has my permission to represent the landlord.
we
And
have that on file.
Yeah.
We have that on file.
But he is not proffering any of the limitations that you're going to put in a declaration of restrictions and that he will need to sign.
Okay.
He will need to abide by those.
In English, what that means is if the board decides on your favor,
yes,
it is very likely that the board will impose some restrictions on you,
he understands that.
okay? On your authorization there from the owner, it doesn't, the owner is gonna need to sign.
The declaration is not signed until they sign it, and in many occasions, they come here, the tenants, and then the owners refuse to sign the declarations.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
Would it be best if he decides to communicate with the owner, get the paperwork he needs, and table this matter and come
Table,
back
yeah.
another day?
That,
Okay, the owner will still need to sign the declaration and give an opinion of title. It doesn't make any difference if the owner is here or not. He will have to then try to convince the owner to sign it, and if he doesn't sign it, even though if you approve it and the council approves it and that is not signed, well. he will not be able to do that.
even with conditions, if,
Yeah, sometimes we have cases of daycares or schools where we impose limitations and they are still not resolved because the owners don't want to have those.
don't agree to the
limitations.
limitation. I see. Do you understand that?
I'm sorry, can you please explain it
English.
to me a little more? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's assume that we vote in your favor. And we impose some limitations on you. Like she was saying, maybe one chair, maybe so many days a week, maybe so many hours a day,
Okay,
conditions,
right,
okay? You can agree to those as you being the business owner, business operator. But the situation is that your application goes for the property. So whatever decisions are made carry with the property.
okay,
You don't have authorization to approve the conditions, only the owner. You have authorization to represent
right,
the current application. Okay, if it's yes, hey, good for you. If it's no, then that's another hurdle that you need to cross. But if there are conditions imposed, okay, at this point, you're not authorized to
sign off.
sign off on them. It has to be the owner.
Yeah, because it's not
And
my
what she
property.
is saying that a lot of times the owners don't sign off on it, so you're back to square one.
Right,
So that's a chance, open-minded, that's something, a chance that you need to take.
yes,
Mr. Ulloa, basically, but then again, he suggested to table the item and get with the owner, but you said that it doesn't make any difference, or?
Won't make any difference.
Well-
You don't think the owner's gonna sign?
Either way, if he gets anything from the owner in writing before he comes to the meeting, once this meeting is over, after this was approved, it would be approved based on conditions that afterwards he would have to bring in a DOR. So the DOR would be proffered at the city council. So no matter what happens, he could bring anything he wants from the owner. But after that, his item hypothetically gets approved, At that point, we would work and set conditions through a DOR that would have to be signed by the owner along with an opinion of title.
Okay. Hypothetically,
Sure.
if the application is approved by us or by the council, or both, is,
We don't send the application to council until we have an executed DOR
Okay.
from the tenant and the property owner.
so if we, hypothetically, if we approve it, he needs to still do more legwork with the owner, bring the,
That's when it would begin. His
And then-
legwork would begin.
once we receive that signed document, then it goes to forwarded to council.
I would allow it to go to first reading to council without a DOR, but we wouldn't allow it to go to second reading.
So he should table it, is what I'm thinking, no? With what you're saying, would it be best to table it?
Either way, after the meeting, after the approval is what matters.
After this.
After this.
Because after this approval, they will start working together with the law department to get that DOR. He will take the DOR to the owner of the property, bring it executed, and then if everything is okay, it will go to the second reading at council. If not, it will get stuck there and will never
So
go
if
to
we
council.
was to approve it, it would be approved with conditions.
With conditions.
With conditions, right? And then the conditions will be
Correct.
spelled out on the DOR.
Okay.
Correct. And what the owner would sign that you would see would be completely different than what I would include in a DOR, which is a lot of time what the owner objects to.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I think we're dealing with somebody's livelihood, and to table it, I mean, I don't know if his license will be suspended or whatnot. And I don't know like how he's gonna be able to pay his bills. So I would propose to go forward and at least give him the opportunity to a chance to continue. And if later the owner does not want to sign it, I mean, that's a separate problem, but at least he's got a chance and we're not just,
Do-
destroying it.
Do you understand what's
Everything.
transpiring here?
Yes, I understand. everything.
Okay. Again, as the attorney says, hypothetically, if we go through in your favor, okay, with conditions,
Mhm.
okay, condition, a form, a DOR, a declaration of restriction.
Right.
A form will be drafted, okay, with those conditions.
Yes,
The owner will have to come, read through it, sign them, okay? He's, like I said, he may.
object.
We
May
may
object.
We may let it go to the first council meeting. But it'll stop there until we have that signed paper.
Right.
You understand that?
Like, yes,
Okay.
most of it, yes, yes.
Well, basically what I'm saying, it comes down to is if it turns out in your favor, it's gonna be up to up to the landlord.
Yes,
He has to,
yeah,
He
he
has
has
to
to
sign off on it.
complete it.
Okay.
I understand.
I have one question. What
Please
are
do.
your hours of operation?
So the barbers work on their own schedule since they work by appointments only. I couldn't answer you that question for them because like I said, for my hours of operation in the shoe store, which is online, I work
Whatever.
from like 12 to like, it's really like, since it's a warehouse, it's not a shopping center. I don't have to be there on time because it's a warehouse. People are not, you get me, like coming and shopping with me, especially since I'm an online store. So as far as for like the hours of operation, there's really no official hours of operation. It's more like I could come in at any time I want, I could leave at any time I want. Same thing with the barbers,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
so there is a level of flexibility there.
of course.
Good. Any more comments or questions from the board?
Oh, one thing, Deborah, if this would hypothetically be approved by the board, do you want to say for the record what the conditions would be?
Yes. What I would say, you can have 2 barber shops or 3 barber shops, but we can say that you cannot have more than one seat and 1 barber shop at the same time.
Do you mean barber chairs?
In the barber chair, yeah, you have one barber station.
Yes.
And then the barbers, they do whatever they want. We won't be able to control the hours, so they move along their hours and it's their coordination. And then how many employees you need for the shoe store? 2?
Well, it's online store, so it's,
Okay, but you have someone there or
One.
or it's you.
and yeah,
Okay,
by
so
myself.
one employee for the shoe store, employee or owner, whatever it is, one barber shop seat with no more than one barber at the same time at the same location, and an online retail for the shoes, and online an appointment for the barber shop. That will limit the number of people. At the most, they can have 3 or 4 people there.
Anyone in the audience have a comment or question on this item? Anyone in the electronic audience? Good, closes the part of the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve with conditions.
Whoa.
Second that motion.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Jimenez and Mr. Gamon, second by Mr. Casanova. Mr. D. Perez,
Yes. with
Mr.
conditions.
Mr. Ulloa,
No.
Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Gamon.
Yes.
Item has been approved with conditions.
Okay, so now. Your next move is. You will draft a,
You'll have to coordinate with my office so we can draft a DOR. One of the secretaries will send you a draft. You can look it over with the opinion of title that will have to be filled out by the property owner.
okay. Okay,
Thank you so much.
good luck.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Item number 2, rezoning property from M1 Industrial District to TOD Transit Oriented Development District, and variance permit to allow front setback of 5 feet where 0 feet is required along East 11th Avenue. Property is located at 2691 East 11th Avenue. Hialeah zoned M1 Industrial District. Applicant, Metro Station LLC.
Which item was that?
Number 2.
Number 2, okay.
This is the rezoning of that property where you just approved the land use. So the property in this application includes 2 adjacent lots located at the southeast intersection of East 11th Avenue and East 27th Street, west of the railroad tracks. The south side of the property is adjacent to the Hialeah Tri-Rail Metro Rail transfer station. The applicant is before the city requesting a land use amendment from industrial to transit-oriented development district, and concurrently requesting rezoning from M1 to TOD to be able to redevelop the site with a new 8-story, 55-unit mixed-use development in accordance with TOD regulations. The proposed projects includes 14 studios and 41 one-bedroom units. Given the adjacency of the site to the proposed projects include 14. Given the adjacency of the site to the Hialeah transfer station, providing access to Tri-Rail and Metro Rail, the applicant is aiming to attract future residents who want to take advantage of transit and forgo car ownership. 16 parking spaces are proposed on the first floor of the building with entrance on East 27th Street. 4 on-street parking spaces are proposed to be built along the 11th Avenue frontage, and payment in lieu of 38 parking spaces will be paid into the Parking Improvement Fund. Retail space and a bike room are proposed along the 11th Avenue frontage to conveniently serve the residents with micro-mobility devices and to be able to satisfy retail needs complementary to the transit station. An increased setback is proposed along the fronts, providing those 2 uses in order to facilitate access. To be able to build the development as proposed, the applicant is requesting rezoning from M1 to TOD and a variance to allow a 5 feet setback along East 11th Avenue where 0 feet built to line are required. Given that the proposed development is aligned with the TOD intent and its adjacency to the station promotes transit use, the rezoning and minor setback variance are recommended for approval. Recommendation approval.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Good evening, Melissa Tapinas, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, Miami. I'm here with the project architect, Ivo Fernandez. Available for any questions, and I'll incorporate the presentation I
Go
just
ahead
made.
and present yourself. She already read it into the record, so.
It's fine. Thank you. It's all incorporated by reference. It's fine. I don't have to do it again. Thank you.
Okay. So are you gonna run through the, or?
Yeah, maybe you can show there the floor plan, the site plan of the building and the floor plan
Thank you.
Give me a second, looking there.
there. Well, you have also the drawings with you. no?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
But you will see that the entrance is on the side. There's a parking on the first floor. You have the retail area, the bike room. And then on top you have the units.
Is there any way possible? I know it's possible, but is it financially feasible to have a two-story parking instead of just ground parking, have like two-level parking?
Yes, there's a cost associated with the parking. The goal here is to make it more affordable, and for people who choose not to have parking. Again, the code allows for our payment in lieu of parking spaces as well as off-site. And the project that I'll be presenting next, item 3, is within the 1,000 feet and does have overflow parking.
Right.
So this
Because-
is a very narrow site. The architect, if you like, Evo.
We need your name and address, please.
Thank you. Yes, Evo Fernandez, Principal Modus Architects, 4955 Southwest 75th Avenue. No, to answer your question, it's not that it's not financially possible, it's physically impossible to have a ramp extending to the second floor. There's not enough length in the property to provide an appropriate ramp system at even a 15% slope to get to the second floor. If we did a slope, we would basically eradicate all the parking spaces on the first floor. So you would be basically eliminating a whole floor to add one floor.
The idea of paying, there's no parking variance here because parking variances are not allowed. So the alternative is to pay into this parking improvement fund that is not cheap to pay for each parking space. And then the city will use that money to make parking improvements. So to build more on-street parking if it's possible, and to get to manage that parking. So maybe in the future, the city will charge for that parking. So in that way, you will eliminate all the parking that is happening on those adjacent industrial properties that are basically operating their business outside of the warehouse and on city right of way. So we will use all those funds to improve that situation there. And so when the parking is paid, people that don't really need to park there don't park. And if they, and this will promote the use of transit. That is the whole objective of the TOD. Like a city of Miami, for example, in certain places, they have 0 parking requirement. City of Miami Beach, you see that many old buildings don't have parking. So they park on the streets. Certain hours are reserved for the residents of the area. And they get a credit, so they don't get charged the same as the guests that go. So there are many strategies that can be taken, and that's why we are creating this parking improvement fund that some properties already contributed to this fund. So
this fund, this program will be akin to the landscape variance things where if you don't provide landscaping here in your property, you contribute to the fund so we can buy trees and landscaping for elsewhere within the city.
Exactly.
So it's the same principle that just instead of trees, you're dealing with actual parking,
Exactly.
more expensive too.
It's costly. The per parking space is costly. And the idea is to create new streetscapes with the on-street parking that we're providing at this property throughout this area of the city of Hialeah. And the way to do that is through development and through city capital improvements.
And I want to be clear that you all understand that my question about the second level was obviously, given the right circumstances, the approach ramp and whatnot, you will gain X more amount of parking spaces,
Right.
but if you're limited to the access ramp and stuff, then you end up probably costing you more parking than.
We would have to go several stories to get
Yeah,
the same
okay.
event, and it
And
just doesn't make
also,
sense.
as the district evolves, these things will be happening organically, like in Wynwood. In Wynwood, they didn't have any parking garage at the beginning. So the district evolved, and then someone built a parking garage for commercial purposes, and they have stores on the first floor. The same happened in the design district.
Right.
So eventually, this will happen, and we will have these funds reserved for that time. Maybe the city will be able to build.
And I think that
parking
I think that the difficulty here is we're evaluating one project kind of in a bubble, right? So we're the architects for Metro Park, which is a 560 unit development right down the street. And if you've seen that project, part of the improvement of that project is that will be an abundance of on-site off-street parking. So every one of those blocks will have anywhere between 40 to 60 on-street parking spaces. So I completely understand, right? You look at this product now and you look at the immediate context around this product, you say, where are these people going to park? The reality is, and this plan and this vision that the city had is already in motion, right? We're months away from breaking ground in Metro Park 1, is that this will be a pedestrian active, vehicular parking active community. And this is one little piece of a grand vision for the entire district.
Okay,
Through the chair.
yes, please. I would
What
say-
is a micro mobility vehicle? Is that like a fancy word
A
for scooter?
A scooter or an
Little scooters.
electric bike.
Oh. Okay. It's a fancy word.
I would, I would describe to you on a layman's term what it is, but it will not be politically correct. So a scooter, like a little
Or a bike or a skateboard. in
ring,
some
ring,
words.
a little scooter.
Chair?
Yes, sir.
The parking spaces that you do have for the building, are they gonna be assigned to certain units or are they gonna have to pay for it? How's it gonna
My
work?
understanding is that it's going to be as part of the leasehold
This
for each unit.
when you're.
But there's not
you
enough
have the
parking
radius here.
spaces there's not even one for each unit though.
Right, it'll be part of what you rent. You
trying-
rent
yeah.
your parking space and you rent the unit. That's how most of these projects work throughout the city of Miami.
And just
Okay,
refresh
yeah.
my memory again, how many units are there again?
55,
And there's
20 structured parking spaces, 4 on-street parking spaces. And we'll be paying into the fund, the 38 spaces times $12,500. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry, are you done?
yeah,
I do have one more question for you. Looking at this drawing here. You're at the little yellow triangle there, rectangle. Okay, that's this particular item. Directly west of you. Put your mouse over there, please. Right, yeah,
North,
right here.
you mean north, the pink, the ones that are pink are already.
No, I'm talking here. She is the yellow one, right? This
No, no,
application is the
she's
yellow.
She's the other yellow one.
Right
That
there, this
one,
yellow,
yes,
right.
yes.
That's the application
That's
in
the
question.
application, yes.
That is directly east of. This is Metro Park 1,
No,
right?
no,
These
no.
two?
Metro Park 1 is the pink one.
Oh, the pink one down here.
That is Metro Park 1. Today you will see Metro Park 2, that is the adjacent block to the north.
Okay, because I'm trying to associate the 1,000 feet, of walking distance between this particular yellow rectangle. And I thought that the blue, purple, whatever color directly west of it.
No, no.
What's gonna be her other property?
That is industrial.
What is
All
that?
those properties are still industrial.
Okay,
What is the one that's right in front of it, the purple?
The warehouse.
That's
no,
warehouses?
you mean the purple one? That
No, no.
has,
No.
the one on the
to the
north,
west. That right there.
Yeah, that area, yeah. What is that?
it's industrial.
Industrial.
Those
It's
are
industrial.
old warehouses that eventually
Is-
will
are they gonna be
transition into
developed?
different uses.
Okay,
For
okay.
now are still warehouses.
now, now I got my bearings right, because I was thinking the pink down here, which is the one off of 25th, which they own 26 and 27, they own the whole block,
Right.
both sides of the
No,
block.
those are two different properties.
That's one block over.
That's,
So that's one block to the west.
is that where you're planning on dedicating parking for this particular?
Yes, we have surplus parking spaces in both those projects.
Okay,
So we'll be presenting that as item 3.
okay. All right, comments or questions from the board, please? No, none heard. Anyone in the audience who have a comment or question on this item? No one in the audience has a comment, question. Anyone in the electronic audience have a comment or question on this particular item? None heard. Was a pleasure of the board.
Motion to
Motion
approve.
to approve.
Second that motion.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Casanova, second by Mr. Jimenez. Mr. Gamon,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Ms. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. G. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez.
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you. May I approach to give this to Ms. Storch?
Item number 3, rezoning properties from R1, one family district to TOD, Transit Oriented Development District. Variance permit to allow a single-use, multi-family residential building where a vertical mix of uses is required. Properties are located at 901 East 26th Street, 911 East 26th Street, 921 East 26th Street, 931 East 26th Street, 941 East 26th Street, 951 East 26th Street, 961 East 26th Street, 971 East 26th Street, 983 East 26th Street, 906 East 27th Street, 910 East 27th Street, 912 East 27th Street, 922 East 27th Street, 932 East 27th Street, 950 East 27th Street, 962 East 27th Street, 984 East 27th Street, and 990 East 27th Street. Hialeah zoned R1, one family district. Applicant, Metro Park Hialeah 2 LLC.
Thank you. 1 second, if you don't mind. Alex, just a little bit of housekeeping. Could you make a note or a mental note or something? The last gentleman, the barber,
Sure.
I asked them for a copy of the neighbor's letters. Could you make that part of the, when you call him to make the appointment, make sure that he brings them so we can provide them for the record?
Sure.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Melissa. Go ahead and
No
identify
problem.
yourself again, please.
Yes, Melissa Tapenez, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, Miami, as well as Evo Fernandez on behalf of Metro Park 2.
Thank you.
The properties in this application include an entire block with the exception of one lot fronting East 27th Street that might be incorporated into the development in the future. The block is surrounded by East 26th Street on the south, East 27th Street on the north, East 9th Avenue on the west, and East 10th Avenue on the east. The property is located within a half-mile of the Hialeah Tri-Rail Metro Rail transfer station and north of the proposed Metro Park, a TOD development currently in the permitting process. The land use of the property is in the process of being amended from low-density residential to transit-oriented district. You approved it at the last meeting. The site encompasses an area of 5.13 acres, allowing 125 units per acre, which results in 612 units. However, since the property is under control of the same entity, Building Metro Park 1, that was approved with a density of 120 units per acre, and both properties include more than 10 acres, the density that was not utilized as Metro Park may be transferred to the subject property. As a result, the applicant intends to develop the subject property with 620 units. The proposed development includes 2 residential buildings with a parking garage in between, lined on the East 26th Street frontage with a lobby and amenities on the ground floor and apartments above the ground floor. A landscaped courtyard area provides a buffer between the building and the residential property that is not included in the application, providing 20 feet of separation between the side property lines of the residential property and the proposed building, and 45 feet between the rear property line and the proposed building. The proposed development includes a wide sidewalk surrounding the block, providing ample space for an urban streetscape fronting East 26th Street, and ample space for the landscape to buffer the proposed development from the residential block on the north side of East 27th Street. No commercial space is proposed on the ground floor, with the intention of maximizing the effect of the commercial space that Metro Park is building along East 25th Street and keeping a residential feel in the interior of the neighborhood. The contemporary building design complements Metro Park 1 and helps shape the transfer station TOD that at this time has 13 developments in the works. To be able to develop the property as proposed, the applicant is requesting rezoning from R1 to TOD and a variance permit to allow a single-use multifamily residential building where vertical mix of uses is required. Also, through this process, the applicant seeks council approval of the density allocation as set forth in section 98-1544 F3. Since the proposed project materializes the intent of the TOD regulations and propels the advancement of the district, the rezoning and variances shall be approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to be back before you this evening with the companion rezoning and variance application for this large assemblage on the south of East 27th Street, north of East 26th Street, and between 9th Avenue and 10th Avenue. Have a presentation before you. Thank you. So next slide, there you go. So this project is one of many that have and will continue to come before this board as developers seek to implement the city's adopted TOD legislation. Approval of this application will advance the city's vision for pedestrian-friendly communities served by tri-county high-capacity rapid transit stations. Next slide. So as mentioned at the last hearing, the property is currently designated low-density residential and zoned R1. As you can see in the screen before you, go to the next slide, please. The property just to the south, Metro Park 1, has already been rezoned and redesignated to the TOD. Next slide, please. So in order to effectuate the change of the TOD and redevelop the site, we're asking for a rezone to TOD as well as this variance to allow for the residential building without ground floor. As Ms. Storch mentioned, we're concentrating the commercial on East 25th Street where we believe it's better suited for the growth of this mixed use development and neighborhood. So the board recommended approval at the February 8th meeting, and today we're before the rezoning and variance. Any questions that you may have regarding that site plan? Next slide. So you can see that the existing conditions are currently underutilized single-family homes. Many have become vacant, as was mentioned by a resident at the last meeting. The property's proximity to high-capacity transit as well as warehouse uses warrants the intensification of this area as the city sought to do back in 2016. Next slide, please. The property is located just one block from the Hialeah transfer station and is an opportunity to encourage the use of public transit. Next slide. And you can see the rendering of Metro Park 2. The applicant is a respected developer in the county with successful projects in the city of Coral Gables. And now this is one of 3 projects they are undertaking in this area. The site plan excludes one lot from the block, and the applicant is actively working to secure control of that lot and will likely be before you in the future to bring it to update the site plan. Next slide. So this is the proposed site plan for the project. The development program includes 620 units, including 8 units of density allocated from the south, the project to the south. The unit mix is studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms with 772 parking spaces, where only 714 spaces are required. So that's almost 60 surplus parking spaces, well, in addition to the 55 units that we just heard on this application. Next slide. That's it? No. Oh, that's all right. So as we ask for your recommendation in favor, there you go. The next slide came up, and that's a rendering of the project in the next slide.
No, that's it.
That's it. That's it. Skipped really quick. It's all good. Well, we respectfully request your recommendation for approval today. We have our architect is here with any technical questions on the plan. There you go. There's the rendering. Thank you for your time.
Technical questions. I love technical questions.
I try to memorize the details, but I'm glad he's here.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of scary to approve things with so little parking, but at the same time, I mean, I see the future. How big do you think this TOD district will get? Like,
Well, I think this example is a very good example of what's happening, exactly what Ms. Storch mentioned. On this site, we're providing significant surplus parking spaces. As I mentioned, we have 620 units. We're providing 772 parking spaces where only 714 are required.
Right.
So we're providing well over the requirement. And the idea is for as you utilize commercial uses on 25th Street, you can park. This is what's happening, as Ms. Storch mentioned, in Woodwood, design districts in the city of Miami, as well as the city of Miami Beach. So the district is what you have here in blue. So it's meant to be walking distance from the transit station.
Because I mean, I really like the idea of perhaps like some of these streets being closed off only for pedestrian use, bicycle use. So like it encourages more people to use their cars less.
Right.
And that would be really fantastic.
It will be, and I think that's all part of the future. So this parking in lieu fee was drafted in a way to allow for micromobility, and that's why the term skateboard, scooters, bikes, whatever, however way you want to travel, who knows what the future holds, and that's why it's meant to be the last mile. And that's why these projects are so important, because what we see for people who would want to use transit is the issue of that last mile to get to the actual station as well as to get home. So in this case, this project and the one before being steps away or a block away is much more doable regardless of the temperature and the weather. So the future is absolutely, you know, the bike lanes, some people love them, some people don't, but as we develop the streetscapes with on-street parking spaces, in this case, there's a significant dedication of land. So for example, the gross area for this block is 5.13 acres, and the net developable area is 3.8 acres. The remainder is actually what is being contributed to the public streetscape. So the idea is for development to contribute in the idea of street trees, on-street parking, sidewalks, which really don't exist in this area. And how about some curb and gutter, right, to deal with stormwater retention? That's the future of Hialeah. And that's why these kinds of TOD projects are so important, because they really, although it can be scary, as you said, it's only scary because we're not there yet. But little by little, you'll start seeing how it comes to be. In our work, we create neighborhoods, and we usually see these neighborhoods come to fruition 10, 15 years. That's the story of the design district. That's the story of Wynwood. And I believe that's the story of the city of Hialeah as well.
And people are willing to use use transit. And if you want to verify that, enter to the Brightline website. And you will, well, I live 2 blocks from that station, the station in Aventura, and I see every morning how people are waiting to use the train to go downtown. But also, if you enter to the website, you will see that many times the tickets are sold out. So
Wow.
this means that the trains are running at full capacity.
Nice.
And when we say the number of years, we should mention Ms. Storch has been working on this since 2016. Right. So that's already 7 years for us to be here with real projects, real developers investing in the city of Hialeah. It's taken 7 years, right, for us to be here with 3 projects and steps away. That's what it takes. So it'll take probably, sadly, maybe a year to actually start, you know, and actually construct. It'll take, you know, so in a year or 2, you're going to start seeing pedestrians utilizing the station. And what that does is allow for funding to improve those transit facilities, which have not been improved in many years. So little by little, but you've got to keep the faith.
7 years on the 50-year view.
In 5
Correct.
years, you will come to my retirement party in a cafe in the TOD.
Fantastic.
You're not allowed to retire. I don't know. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that.
I promise to arrive in my micro mobility device.
Micro-mobility.
Skateboard,
Yes.
skateboard would be
To
fun.
answer your question, your very first question, look at the screen in front of you. See that big blue rectangle?
Yes, sir.
That is the TOD from 17th Street all the way up to 33rd Street. From 37th Avenue, east of the railroad tracks, all the way to Lejeune Road. Their property is at the yellow in the center. So the TOD area is a good chunk of land. What? Not you, her. What would happen to say that O'Reilly's, the new
O'Reilly's?
O'Reilly's, the new auto parts store that just opened up there on like 24th in June. That's part of the TOD,
Well, who knows? The market will dictate what happens. Maybe
It's
they
part
are
of the
okay
charm.
there,
but
you
that will be basically up for grabs. At
Well, you have a Navarro there. so
Navarro,
there,
yes,
yeah.
yes, in the corner, yeah.
Lejeune will be continue to be Lejeune and will be a street with a lot of traffic, so many people will drive to their
Right.
basements.
So because they're within the boundaries, there will be like that one lot that you have there that you're trying to acquire, they will basically be up for grabs.
Well, it's property rights, so they'll sell, they won't sell. Some
Right.
people like to be in the mix of fun, and you see
Right.
that in areas like Design District where you have a single family home next to a restaurant. Eventually, the single family home turns into a quaint restaurant with character.
Yeah.
So the idea is not to just bulldoze areas of the city, but to happen gradually, naturally, organically, when people want to sell, not when they're forced to sell, but when they want to sell. The values are going up at the same time as you're creating this kind of density and providing for more affordable housing in the sense of workforce, right? For people to be able to say the expense of a car, for example, that is equivalent to a student loan as an example. So when you're starting out, you don't, if you live here, you can have a nice new place and take the train into downtown while you're focusing on your student loans, I can say, because I definitely had student loans to go to law school.
You're not alone.
Thank you, Melissa. Any more comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the audience would like to chime in? Comment or question from the audience? We have one volunteer. Or should we say we have one victim? Name and address, please.
David Milian, 861 East 27th Street. My course of concern then, and I understand, this great utopia that we're trying to create and where we're trying to be more green. Everybody's trying to get to transit, mass transit, and so on. Safety comes into concern when you have high-level people riding in transit. I understand from the properties that they have acquired that eventually more traffic will be in that area, especially going in front of my house. You actually want to have more people riding in transit. And that's great, but how do you get those people to actually do that? And if they don't, that means that they're going to be parking in the streets down 9th Avenue where parking is available on the side roads. And I'm sure that somehow, some way, they're going to make their way onto the rest of the residents in the area. I am not here to go against the project. I am all for in, making better areas, of course, but not at the cost of everybody in the surroundings. And I see on that board up there that it was from 17th Street to 32nd Street. My property lands right there somewhere in the middle. Are my property values going to go down? Or is it that you guys have something planned in the future where you guys are acquiring other properties in the area? That's what I want you guys to take concerned on. Everybody else and their property values, their parking issues, and their course of safety within the residents there with more traffic flowing through the area. So I don't know if I'm in the right, if I'm in the wrong, but
It's a valid question. It's
just,
a valid
So-
question.
it's just, again, I'm not going against you, but it worries me when you have X amount of apartment buildings going up and hardly any parking. And I know for sure that transit in Miami-Dade is not the best. And I see the Metro Rail, which, if I remember correctly, and I remember my dad telling me this when I was younger, if Ronald Reagan once said that you can give a Lincoln Town Car to every individual before you make that it will cost less than making this transit Metro Rail, which I've ridden in the train. I've ridden on the train to go to Bayside, to Vizcaya, get on my bike, ride to, somewhere in Crandon Park and all that. I don't see people riding the train more often. I see all these bike lanes going up. but I really don't see. I see more people wanting cars. Now, in the future, cars are becoming more expensive. Cars are becoming, electrical. Of course, yes, that's great, less emissions, but I don't know. Maybe I'm confused, so.
Thank you. The comment was it will be cheaper to buy every rider,
Yeah.
every
a Lincoln Top Bar.
proposed rider to buy them a brand new Cadillac. Okay, than to build the whole metro system.
Yeah.
That
Which
was,
is-
I remember, I'm with you. I remember that
Which the
comment.
Metro Rail system, in reality, it only takes you from Palmetto Station through Okeechobee to Hialeah Park into
Right.
downtown area. It doesn't take you to major places. I know it takes you into Dayland Mall, but that's it. I mean, most of the traffic is on the west side on Miami-Dade trying to get into downtown, not from Hialeah. I don't know. Last time I checked, Hialeah wasn't the greatest place in the world to live. But I've been living here for the longest time and I don't change it at all. But Hialeah is not growing at the pace that Miami is growing and Kendall is growing and all that because everybody wants to be in a newer city. Now I see that everybody in the city also has, the city is not keeping up with what should be. Yeah, it's, are we gonna make it worse or we're gonna make it better? So, I mean, R1s, of course, are R1s and R3s are R3s. If everything is gonna be converted into R3 up to 32nd Street from that videos, that screen set up there, marked in blue, it's great. The June Road, okay, we'll have more traffic. Better make it wider.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a very good point. So you said a lot, which I think is really important.
Maybe a mix of bag.
No, I think it's excellent. So the first thing is safety. And one of the issues that we have in lands that have not been developed in decades is that you don't have sidewalks, curb and gutter. You don't have any protection from the pedestrian to the right of way. You don't have crosswalks. You don't have the investment in the streetscapes. That is done by new development. So that is part of how this area of the city will change. At the same time, regarding your single family homes, throughout areas that do develop, those single family homes remain and they're part of the character and the charm of areas. So there's no reason to fear. And what we've seen is the values of single family homes continue to increase. So in this case, we are providing 770 parking spaces for 620 units, well in excess of the requirements that we would have. So I think it's an exciting time to be part of the city of Hialeah, to have new development and new public and private amenities. So that's what we're.
Are you taking into course of concern that people?
Okay, I need you to.
Oh, sorry. Are you also taking, like under concern, like people that have two cars in one apartment spaces? I'm pretty sure that married couples will live in that building, I'm sure somebody has two cars. Are you taking that into effect? I mean, I don't know.
For what I know of the developments that have been completed on 24th Street, I spoke to the owner, to the developer, and he told me that most of the apartments, is 24 apartments in total, he rented to the people that work in Leon Medical Center or they work in the Hialeah Hospital, and they are okay having one car because one of them walks to their job, so they are fine with one car.
Thank you.
And then another thing that I want to tell you is that the city has an open bid because we are going to work for 2 years on a master plan for the long term until the year 2050. So there will be a forum for the residents to participate. We will divide the city in different areas. So when the time comes that your area is going to be planned, you will be able to participate and express all your concerns and ideas.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night. Anyone else? Any more comments or questions? Is there anyone in the electronic audience that have a comment or question on this item? Closes the part of the public hearing. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we can. You want
So
to,
motion to approve by,
There. Jimenez.
Let's wait.
Let's
for
wait, yeah,
her,
let's wait.
Because I want to mess up.
There she goes. Hurry, 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 hurry. See, Sally, there's certain things that only you can do. As good as you do.
Motion to approve by Mr. Jimenez.
All right, motion by Mr. Jimenez.
Right.
And who's second?
Casanova.
Mr. Casanova. Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mr. Ramon,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez.
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Good
That was
night.
item 3, right?
Yes. Item number 3. Item number 4, rezoning property from RO residential office to B1 highly restricted retail district. Property is located at 3375 West Fourth Avenue, Hialeah zoned RO residential office. Applicant Cesar Mestre Esquire.
Mr. Mestre, how you doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Alrighty, can you identify yourself, please, for the record?
Cesar Mestre, law offices at 8105 Northwest 155th Street, Miami Lakes, Florida.
Thank you, sir.
The property in this application is located at the southeastern intersection of Red Road and West 34th Street. The property's land use has been amended from residential office to commercial in 2022 with the purpose of redeveloping the site with a new two-story building with a lobby and parking on the first floor and medical offices on the second floor, together with the adjacent lot to the east proposed to be developed as a parking lot to serve the subject property and to create a buffer between the existing single-family home and the proposed building. At this time, the applicant is for the city requesting rezoning from RO to B1 in order to make land use and zoning consistent. Since the residential office land use and zoning classification proved to be outdated because they do not meet the current demands of professional offices, many offices within this classification remain the same as in the 70s and 80s, since there is no incentive for renewal because of the limitation on the number of occupational licenses allowed. Having analyzed the issue and trying to accommodate to the current demands of professional use, staff believes that the land use change to commercial paired with a low-intensity commercial classification such as B1 would incentivize the replacement of all professional offices such as the subject property, as it is already occurring also along the 49th Street corridor east of Red Road. The proposed development includes a two-story building with a first-floor entrance lobby at the corner and surface parking underneath the second story, screened by an articulated wall with openings and landscaping fronting Red Road. The second floor will include 7,562 square feet of medical offices. The proposed building is compatible with the adjacent residential office on properties to the north and south because of its layout and proposed low-intensity B1 zoning classification. The new building will enhance the area by bringing renewal while providing an adequate parking and buffer from the residential properties to the east. The recommendation is approval.
Thank you, Mrs. Stewart. Mr. Mestre?
Yes, thank you. I have a presentation that will deal with both item 4 and the next one, which is item 5. They're companions. And they go together, so I'll explain both of them to you at this time. The owner.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, Mr. Mestre, because I'm sitting here scratching my head trying to find out where the documents are for item 4 and 5. All I have is a cover sheet.
They're
So I'm
together.
glad you square that. I know, 4 and 5.
Perfect. The owner of this property is La Colonia Medical Center, who's proved to be a good neighbor, sponsoring many city events. And like I said, both properties are adjacent one to the other, 3375 West 4th Avenue and 374 West 34th Street. This is a map which shows you Red Road going directly west of the properties. The ones that we're talking about are the ones in the circle, the one on the corner and the one right next to it. Next slide. Next slide, please. This is the actual building that is located there on that corner lot right now. That will be demolished and there will be a new building that will be put in its place. Next slide. This is the building that is also owned by La Colonia and is located directly across the street to the north. Next slide. This is the proposed building that will replace the one that's there now. As the director told you, this is a two-story building, medical offices. Next slide. As you can see, there is parking that is going to be located on the ground floor, and the medical offices will be located on the second floor. Next slide. This is the rendering from the view of West 4th Avenue. So this is what you will see. Although there's parking on the bottom, as you can see, it's going to be hidden from view so that it looks nicer and makes the West 4th Avenue a lot more appealing. Next slide. Same view, just from a little bit further south. As you can see here, the building is on the corner lot. And then the next item 5, is the lot located directly to the east, which is parking also. This serves as the director said, as a buffer between the low intensity commercial designation that we're asking for and the residential uses that are located to the east. Next slide. This is another view to show you that there's parking underneath the building on the first floor and the surface parking located to the east. Next slide. This is just to show you the parking layout. We do have 38 parking spaces, which is within the code. Next slide. This is just showing you some more of the parking. Next slide. This is the offices that are actually located on the second floor of the building. There's going to be 3 vital sign offices, 3 consult offices, 1 executive office, 1 therapy, and 1 patient lounge. Next slide, please.
See, so that's the last slide.
So based on this and remembering that the land use has already been changed to commercial, and the proposal was always to come in and have it rezoned to the less intense commercial designation, which really the big difference is if it's RO, you can only have 2 licenses, which was good back when the RO designation came up and was done. But nowadays, 2 licenses just don't work because, for example, in medical offices, you have some of the therapists, some of the phlebotomists, a lot of the staff has to have licenses, and you have several doctors that work at different offices and have different geographical areas that they go to different days. So there's a need to have more than the 2 licenses. So based on this, I would ask you for a recommendation of approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
At the beginning of your presentation, you had which slide is this? Number 9?
Yeah.
Go back. More. Right there.
Here?
Right there.
Yes.
Okay. Now, of course, I'm wearing the green shirt again. I am not by any means a tree hugger. Okay, I am not a tree hugger, but is your plans to keep those beautiful palm trees that are there?
I have to look at the plans and I
Not
don't.
at that location. At that location, no. They have plenty of landscaping at the back in the parking lot, but they won't be able to.
Yeah, if you look at slide number 11, I believe that shows,
It shows some, yeah,
no, 11, the next one.
11.
Sorry.
Nope.
Yeah, this one kind of shows you some of the landscaping that we're going to be proposing or doing. But I do know that Hialeah has they're getting stricter on the landscape architecture. So we will comply with whatever is required to beautify this area.
To me, it will be a shame to destroy those trees. Those are beautiful trees. And,
I'm looking at the plans and I see that there's palm trees.
Yes.
adjacent to West Fourth Avenue, so,
Yeah, but
That may be
won't
those, I'm
won't
not
be the
sure.
same trees. They won't survive the construction.
okay.
Yeah, it's a shame. Anyway, I'm sorry. I just
That's
want to
okay.
throw my 2 cents worth in there. So thank you, Mr. Messer. Comments or questions? I
The
see
app-
that.
the
I see that
app-
grin on your face. I knew you're ready to.
The applicant keeps his properties very
I
very
know.
neat and with landscaping and
But
not
you see-
only this one, but many other throughout the city.
But you see, I know that in the past, those pine trees on 32nd Street by the racetrack, that I proposed to keep them, but it seems to be that they're an invasive species and they can't, so. Whatever, it was worth a shot. Okay. Any comments or questions from the board? Anyone in the audience have a comment or question? Anyone in the electronic audience? All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Jimenez, second by Mr. Casanova and Mr. Gamon. Mr. G. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa.
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Gamon,
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez.
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you.
Item number 5, rezoning property from R1, one family district to P parking. Property is located at 374 West 34th Street, Hialeah zoned R1, one family district. Applicant Cesar Mestre Esquire.
Caesar Mestre with offices at 8105 Northwest 155th Street, Miami Lakes, Florida.
The property in this application is located on the south side of West 34th Street and is the second lot north of the southeastern intersection of Red Road and West 34th Street. The property's land use has been amended from residential to commercial in 2022 with the purpose of redeveloping the property jointly with the adjacent property to the west to be developed with a new 2-story building with a lobby and parking on the first floor and medical offices on the second floor. The subject lot is proposed to be developed as a parking lot to serve the adjacent property and to create a buffer between the existing single-family home and the proposed building. Since the property will be jointly developed with the adjacent property to the west and will serve to satisfy required parking, a unity of title will be required prior to development. At this time, the applicant is before the city requesting rezoning from R1 to P in order to make zoning consistent with the proposed land use. The request should be approved because it ensures that the property will remain as a parking lot, buffering the commercial use from the residential neighborhood. Recommendation approval.
As stated earlier, this is the companion case of the one that you just voted on. This provides the parking that is necessary for this project, so we would respectfully ask for a recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Mr. Mestre, this picture, you see the picture on your screen, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. This whole picture here, is this a rendering or is this an actual picture?
No, this is a rendering.
Rendering
Yes.
based on actuality or just a rendering, a generic rendering?
I would tell you that this is mostly, I would tell you to concentrate on the project. I don't know how accurate it is of the surrounding area, to be honest with you.
Okay. you.
Usually it's not very accurate.
Well, no, I see some anomalies there that I will bring up later.
See, that's true.
So,
Yeah, they usually put very,
They
very
always say
nice.
that it's an artistic,
Yeah.
Right.
interpretation.
I mean, I'm looking at Google Maps and it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Except that house next to it is missing that mobile home in the back that.
That adds to the landscaping, the character.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mehta, you said something?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. No,
Fine.
it's just curiosity. I just wanted to get a feel for whether it was, it's obviously a rendering, but whether it was based on reality or just a little bit of imagination, a little bit of both, what have you.
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions from the board, please?
On the Mestra.
Can you hear me? I lost you guys. Okay, thank you.
And
I turned yours on.
oh, what happened here?
Not pre-P, not the last name.
Okay, ready? Meeting is back in session. And we have to turn on his microphone and his camera. There you go. Already.
Ready? Item number 6, rezoning property from M1 Industrial District to C3 Extended Liberal Commercial District. Variance permit to allow 27 parking spaces, 20 off-street and 7 on-street, where 322 parking spaces are required. 258 off-street and 64 on-street. Allowed a waiver of the minimum landscaping requirements, allowing trees where 58 trees are required. Allowed a waiver of the landscape buffer along West 64th Street, where 7 feet landscape buffer is required. And allowed 3.11% pervious area, where 30% is the minimum required. Property located at 7445 West 4th Avenue, Hialeah zoned M1 Industrial District. Applicant Hugo Arza, Squire on behalf of Your Family 2 LLC.
Thank you. Hugo, identify yourself, please.
Good evening, Hugo Arza, office is at 701 Brickell Avenue, representing the applicant.
Thank you, sir. Sorry for a little delay, but
No worries.
So the property in this application is located at the northeastern intersection of Red Road and West 74th Place. The general location of the property is at the south end of an industrial pocket located between the Gratini Expressway and West 74th Place, west of Red Road, which is gradually transitioning to a mixed-use area informally referenced as Amelia District. The immediate area to the west is also under redevelopment, where the former dog track and Salvation Army are in the process of being redeveloped as multifamily. The properties south of the subject property are mostly commercial and along the Red Road corridor and high-density residential along West 74th Place. West 74th Place ends at Amelia Earhart Park, where a pedestrian entrance has been recently added. The property's land use was recently amended from industrial to commercial in relation to a proposed retrofit of the existing industrial building. At this time, the applicant is before the city requesting rezoning from N1 to C3 in order to make land use and zoning consistent. A parking variance to allow 27 parking spaces where 322 are required, a waiver of landscaping requirements which will require mitigation, and variance to allow 3.11 pervious area where 30% is required. Not included in the request and included in the letter of intent is a request to allow the site to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in connection with the proposed entertainment uses. The existing industrial building is proposed to be retrofitted for entertainment uses with an open floor plan on the first floor, having an area of 20,000 square feet and a rooftop, including a bar and outdoor seating on the second floor with capacity for 304 seats. The estimated total capacity, including both floors, is approximately 800 people. The parking requirement for the proposed use is 322 parking spaces. 258 off-street parking spaces and 64 on-street parking spaces. The current configuration of the site only allows for 20 off-street parking spaces, and the applicant is proposing to build 7 on-street parking spaces adjacent to the property on West 74th Place. The applicant is also proposing to improve the north side of West 74th Street east of the property with on-street parking, including approximately 14 parking spaces. A letter of intent submitted by the applicant states that the proposed use of the property for entertainment will receive significant traffic from the significant pedestrian traffic from the approximately 1,500 residential units built or under construction within a half-mile of the site, that is a 10-minute walking time. That for special events to be held at the property during the hours that neighboring commercial and industrial properties will not be operating, valet parking will be provided, where cars will be parked off-site on properties from which the applicant intends to secure agreements that as of this moment include 34 parking spaces, from which 9 are located at 7555 West Second Court and 25 are located at 7450 West Fourth Avenue. That the characteristics of the use will make ride sharing a preferred option for many patrons, and that the applicant is working on an agreement with the county to allow parking at the Amelia Earhart Park. No plans have been submitted for mitigation of amplified sound, visual impacts of light and glare to neighboring residential properties, and no plan have been submitted for security, crowd control, or proposed car queuing for valet parking, making it difficult to assess the impact of the use, the parking deficit, and the traffic circulation in the area. However, the applicant states on its letter of intent that noise and light abatement measures for the rooftop entertainment area will be addressed with a sound and lighting area plan to be submitted with the site plan and concurrency review package. The letter also states that security and off-duty officers will be retained to address traffic circulation and safety for special events. In addition, the applicant is requesting to operate the site 24 hours a day, while Section 669D of the City of Hialeah Code of Ordinances does not authorize alcoholic beverages consumption between the hours of 4:50 a.m. and 8 a.m. Accordingly, this petition shall be revised by the applicant, having also in mind the impacts of time overlap at early hours when commercial or industrial businesses in the surrounding area might be conducting loading and unloading operations. Although the use is desirable and a suitable addition to a residential area at walking distance, developed to attract young residents, the proposed parking availability of 84 parking spaces for an 800 people capacity building raises concern. The rezoning from M1 to C3 is consistent with the proposed use for entertainment and consistent with the commercial land use of the property. However, uses other than entertainment allow on C3 some properties not compatible with these locations, such as an automotive repair uses, shall be restricted. The landscaping mitigation may be allowed with the commitment that the 58 trees and related number of shrubs will be mitigated as set forth in Section 982233. The recommendation is to approve the application together with the DOR, establishing maximum capacities in relation to available parking as it increases over time. For example, 200 persons where 84 parking spaces are available, 400 persons for 160 parking spaces availability, and full capacity for 322 parking spaces availability. The DOR shall also include the limitation of uses mentioned in the above report. The statements represented by the applicant in its letter of intent, and detailed safeguards to make sure that the public safety, morals, and welfare of the community are protected.
Okay, that was a mouthful.
Thank you. We have a presentation I'm going to run through. So this is a property that this board recently recommended approval for the land use change from industrial to commercial. A lot of the topics and a lot of discussions that we heard earlier today, I think the last time I was here, I was the first item. I was out of here by like 6:20. Today being at the end of the agenda or close to the end of the agenda, I've gotten to hear a lot of discussions. And so, bringing it up, changing from industrial to commercial uses and people operating commercial uses in industrial areas has come up. So has the concept of a district. We talked about the TOD. This is a district, this is the Amelia district. So a lot of the things that this board continues to see, you've already heard a lot about today. But you've seen this property before. This board already recommended approval to change it from industrial to commercial. And the next item is a building two buildings over on the same West Fourth Avenue. And so I have slightly different presentations, but really the same point. Here's a rendering of what we're going to do. Let me be very clear. This property, like with the other one that you're going to hear, is an existing building. It's an existing industrial building. We're not building anything from scratch. This is a building that has the little bit of parking that you see today. It's obviously very underutilized these days. And what we're proposing to do, and this rendering kind of starts to give you an example, is to take this building and then take the next application that you have, and in an area in which you've now seen, and it's no longer speculation, and you know how you guys were talking before, again, hearkening back to a conversation you had 45 minutes ago, or an hour ago, in a year and 2 years, this is here. 1,500 units are there today, and they've been built over the last 5 to 7 years. Many, the vast majority by the very same owners of this property in the next item. And that point is important for one fundamental reason. That's their bread and butter. They're residential developers. They're not going to ever do anything or propose anything that's going to hurt their own residents and their ability to rent out their units. What they're trying to do is actually create an entire area and create a place so that these folks that are already living there, plus the 600 and some odd units that are about to come online across the street that are from another developer, but are literally on the other side of the former kennel site, which should be getting its CO, I understand, in March. So another 600 units worth of residents that are moving into that area, all will have areas in which they can come, yet again, in the city, a place, a destination for entertainment, retail, boutique shops and stuff like that. This parcel was industrial, and so we changed it to commercial. And what you have here now, and here's the site, and you can see it's the corner site. In this case, what you have here now is our request to take the entire box that exists and say, if all of this were entertainment and retail, we need an ungodly amount of parking. We're never going to meet that, and no developer in the world for retail or entertainment will ever. You guys have mentioned, or folks have mentioned, Wynwood Design District. None of those places have parking. None of them. You go there and you park on streets, you valet, you do the things that we're proposing to do here, because no retail entertainment establishment like this could ever function with enough parking. I mean, you'd need a 25-acre site for 3 restaurants, and 4 bars. That's not going to happen. Deborah's, constantly staying on us to say, and she mentioned it earlier, parking garages and things, those will come online later. And I always remind her, and she knows it, Wynwood got its first parking garage 2 years ago. I mean, for how many years have we been hearing about Wynwood, going to Wynwood, visiting, going shopping, eating? They got the first parking garage 2 years ago. They didn't get it at the beginning, because you can, if you exact that at the beginning, you'll never get the restaurants, the shops, the boutique. You'll never get any of it, because people can't afford to build a parking garage first and then hope that they can bring the businesses to supplement it. So it is a bit of a chicken and egg situation. And on its face, obviously, it's a glaring and blaring, parking variance that we're asking for. But the idea behind it is to turn these 2 buildings from their current use, which is, underutilized old industrial, and take it and say, what can it be? It can be restaurants, it can be lounges, it can be boutiques, it can be shops, it can be an ice cream shop, it can be coffee, it can be a cigar lounge. All of those uses are all in play. And the easiest way to be able to then now go out and bring those users in is to know that the site has the right zoning, and that any of these users that want to come in are going to be able to come in and aren't going to have a parking variance. So back to the gentleman earlier today, where there was a building and there's a parking variance and he's a mere tenant. It does nobody any good if every single tenant that we had or that we rented to over the next 18 months had to come in here and say, I'm doing this much and I need this much of a variance. I'm doing this much and need this much of a variance. We're being candid. We're pulling the Band-Aid off. We're saying these buildings do not have enough parking. I mean, it'd be ludicrous to suggest otherwise, but people don't tend to go, by themselves to dinner or lounges or bars. They tend to do ride sharing in much higher proportion than anything else. They don't go to grocery stores and Uber as much as they go to restaurants and bars and lounges. And again, the 1,500 units that exist within a walking distance. And if we go to the next slide, that's what the existing building is today. And the previous slide showed you what it would be embellished, but that's what it is. It's a box. It's basically a box with some parking in the front. That's what exists today. Next. The current land use and zoning, and again, we're changing it so that it matches the red, the business zoning, the commercial zoning C3. Next. Our requests and really obviously the parking one is the most glaring one. We're okay. We were asking for 24/7. Our letter of intent has asked for 24/7. The city allows it in Factory Town. Factory Town is allowed to have 24/7. And, and they did it in Factory Town on a district-wide basis. We actually elected to do it here as a request on this one and on the next one by one, because back to the point I made previously, the owners of these two parcels, this one and the next item, own 800 residential units in this area. And so they are confident that they're not going to do anything to harm those residents and those long-term, folks that are in the area. If you create a district-wide, then every one of these warehouses can go try and apply for a license and try and run a speakeasy, a bar, whatever they want to. And we felt like we would lose some control. So the city does allow 24/7 alcohol consumption in another part of the city, like Factory Town. We asked for it specifically here and in the next application to have the flexibility. We don't have a user in mind. The world is a different place. People like to go out till late at night, early in the morning. I'm in bed much earlier than that. I'm way too old for that. But we are okay accepting Deborah's, suggestion that we cut it off at 5 a.m., 4:50 a.m. is the technical. We're happy to accept that as one of her conditions. If someone comes to us for a use someday that really truly requires 24/7, we could always come back, and then have that specific use, highlighted for some reason. But that requirement, while it's part of our request, we're happy to accept Deborah's recommendation. In fact, we accept Deborah's recommendation, in its entirety. We'll continue to work to identify parking spaces. If you go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about this. This is, what I've been referring to, and you guys have seen this slide before because it's really, illustrative of what's in this area and that transformation of that whole West 4th Avenue corridor. Next slide. And that's the kennel site, which doesn't look like that anymore. It looks like a fully developed parcel. This one is, the site is the one with the star there. And then you see all of the orange is all of the residential units. And Deborah mentioned, as part of our application, we are agreeing to improve street parking along 74th Court. And we'll continue to do that. One of the other commitments we've made, and we've met with the streets department already, is to continue to find places for street parking throughout this entire area, not just fronting our property. Next, the project highlights you guys have been hearing about. We've already secured the ability to park for valet. And what we're offering to do is we've actually had a couple of special events there, through special event permitting rather than having, full zoning in place, so that they were one night type events. They've had valet, they've had police, they've had fire there. And there have been no issues, no calls to shut them down or anything like that. For special events, we've made a commitment to the city. And again, we'll memorialize all of this in the DORs, another long discussion you all had earlier, but the gentleman hadn't been through that. We have. And in this case, we own the property. The applicant owns the property, so it's not an issue. We know what we can sign. We will commit to having valet parking, security, whatever protections we need, as we've already done for a special event anyway on the site. We want nothing more than for this property to work. We want to, beautify and bring, in this case, to this area, the restaurants, the shops, the lounges, the bars that you need. If any of you have been to La Romanita, same owners, 2 buildings to the north from here, it's that on steroids. It's that, hopefully another couple restaurants, lounges, bars. Deborah mentions and what we've told her, because we're proposing a rooftop deck, which is all in vogue in every part of the city. We don't have users for that yet. And so Deborah's been asking me since the day I submitted this application for a sound study. Like, Deborah, I don't know what speakers they're going to use. Like, none of us know that yet. So the compromise, which we're happy to meet, is that when we come in for a building permit to build out, and we can't just operate on the roof deck. I mean, it has to be built out. Stairs have to be built, elevators. I mean, there's a lot of work that's going to go into utilizing a rooftop area. We will then at that point obviously provide for sound study once we have a user. We're only going to do that when we have a user, and that person and that user will be able to tell us, listen, I do this. This is where I want to stage my speakers. This is where I want noise. This is where I'm going to want light and lighting. And so at that point is when we've agreed to tell the city, show the city exactly what they may want to see with respect to that. So it's not that we are, scant on details. We just don't have the end user yet. But again, it's a chicken and egg problem, as they've owned this property and the next one, which is a, almost identical presentation. And they've been talking to potential users. The first question is, well, can I go in there? Well, no, we got to get it rezoned. Am I going to have a parking issue? Well, we're working on that. We need to work on this because if we do it one by one, it'll never happen. And that's why we chose to pull the Band-Aid. And I know on its face, it's obviously a huge type of parking variance. But the reality is that for the types of uses we're proposing, whether it's rideshare, and I glossed over, we have, and we've included, and I don't think it's in this one. I think it's in the next presentation because we just kind of mix and match. But the county commission has already taken to first reading an ordinance to allow for parking in county parks on a payment basis. Amelia Earhart has an entrance at the end of 74th Court. It's not utilized, but there's actually paved areas and there's parking and there's an area there. That ordinance didn't come coincidentally. I mean, we ourselves, my client, worked with the county commissioner for this district and another county commissioner that also has a park in her district to say, hey, this makes sense when a park is next to an industrial, commercial, residential area. If there's times of the day when people want to use the parking and pay for it, we should allow them to do it. Believe it or not, the code in the county didn't allow for that right now. We've taken the first step and the commission has taken the first step, but with our sort of urging to try and get that to happen. So is that in place today? No, but neither is this built out yet, leased out. So we're confident that as we bring in those additional parking elements, and maybe hopefully one day there's enough of all of this that it makes sense for someone to buy a parcel and put up a parking garage on it. And we aren't close to that possibility down the road. But we'll work with the city to continue to bring, keep those residents that are here already and allow the ones that are going to come and Uber and rideshare and the like to enjoy and not have to go to Wynwood anymore for a night out, dinner, lounge, cocktails, dancing, whatever the case may be. So, we would ask for your recommendation. I know that it's a large parking variance, but it's part of a vision. It's part of a vision for the entire area. And the folks that are carrying this out, I think, are uniquely positioned as the owners of the vast majority of the units in this area, as folks that not only are they spending millions to acquire these properties and build them out, it's their livelihood. They're not going to propose or do anything that's going to create an issue. They're not going to want a parking jam that keeps their residents from getting to their apartments, because then residents aren't going to want to rent there. And that's actually, at the end of the day, the most important part of what they do. They've been residential developers, here in the city for many, many years. But this is a unique fit. And so we would ask for your recommendation of approval. We'll continue to work with the city on some of the details and the nuances. And we invite all of you, once these are open, and in the meantime, to go to La Romanita and get a flavor for what that area looks like, because it is an exciting area, and not because we worked on TOD projects, and I've worked on projects down over by the transfer station myself, and we have another one coming to you. It's not speculative. These units are there. The last 600 should be getting their CO very shortly, the kennel ones. I mean, there's 1,500 units that have been built in the last 5 or 6 years. Like, none of this is speculative. And there'll be some more units, but the reality is this is coming in now on the tail end of what's already been developed substantially. So I'm happy to answer questions. I'm sure you all have some questions, and I may not have all the answers today because, again, we don't have all the users and all the tenants in place. But we're asking you to trust us, to believe that this developer, who has developed thousands of units in the city, and is obviously holds this area in particular, the whole city, but this area that they kind of saw and started building little by little, and they hold it near and dear to their heart. We ask that you trust that we'll carry out something here in this area that you can all be proud of, and that you'll go to early in the evening for dinner, or maybe late at night for some drinks, and be able to say, hey, I didn't have to go to Wynwood or Coral Gables or the Design District or Miami Beach. I was able to do all of this in Hialeah, and isn't that exciting? So happy to answer any questions that you have. And like I said, I don't think the second presentation is going to be anywhere near as long, but I wanted to hit some of those issues and hope for your recommendation of approval.
Through the chair.
Thank you.
Hugo, is this gonna be like an indoor mall kind of thing?
Not a mall. We're gonna build it out. So the idea isn't that you're going to walk in and have like kiosks or anything like that necessarily, like little stores or anything like that.
Right.
I mean, I think that's what you would think of as a mall.
Because I see a big warehouse.
Yeah, it's a warehouse today. So I've been inside of it. In fact, there was an event. I think Ms. Storch attended an event. There's an event, a special event held in connection with Art Basel back in December. And basically the entirety of the site inside was, decorated to allow for people to come in. I think in the short run, there's going to be some of that. I think in the long run, this site will probably house maybe some different concepts. So maybe it'll be the kind of place, and again, this is all sort of like the ideas that are being kicked around, but maybe you walk in and there's, multiple vendors for food, and there's, and people set up for, a coffee shop or drinks. We've shown plans to Deborah in the past of like containers, how people will work and operate out of containers. We have an idea and a plan like that. But what you have before you today, since the building exists, it's not a site plan. I mean, the proposed site plan looks like that because really I'm trying to figure out how we can get to the point where we can tell any of those people, you can come in here and you're not going to have an issue when you come for parking, like the poor gentleman did an hour and a half ago, right? I mean, like we're trying to avoid that. So I think it's going to be a lot of different things. And then the rooftop one, once built out, will probably just be entertainment lounge. If you've been to any rooftop lounge in anywhere, it's just usually, you take advantage of being a little higher up and the views and the like, and it would just be, alcohol, drinking, beverage, food, whatever might come in.
Yeah, I think the project has the shortfalls of the lack of parking and the lack of trees. But at the same time,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's bringing something that Hialeah really needs, which is entertainment. And we don't have to go to the Grove or go somewhere else far away. So I really like the project.
Thank you. And look, when it comes to landscaping, and again, I see our landscape expert sitting behind me watching hawkishly. I mean, we're not, certainly we're not averse to adding, this is not a blank slate. I mean, there's a building here and there's parking and stuff. But in terms of adding landscaping and all of that through site planning concurrency, we're happy to beautify. We want it to be inviting. I mean, no one wants to go to some ugly, desolate place. So we'll absolutely, it will look, if you go back to the picture, I mean, it'll look much better than it looks today. I mean, today it's
an outdated picture because you didn't show this picture.
You mean the proposed?
Yes,
You got some very
is
colorful
the
pictures.
Yeah.
you have an old one.
The on the
in your
presentation.
presentation.
Okay. Well, there's more color on that one.
Yeah,
So.
this one is nice.
So, but that just goes to show you, I mean, we by the time that we get to, and as you all know, there's a subsequent site planning concurrency administrative process. I mean, very often the projects morph, not fundamentally. I mean, you can't go adding 50 units or, X or Y, but do they look better? And does Deborah keep our the pressure on us to make the project look better? Absolutely. And so I'm sure we'll incorporate more landscaping as we go along.
I have just curiosity,
Mhm.
one question for you. Because
I wouldn't expect anything less.
you mentioned something about the parking at the park.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's in the process,
Right.
it's in the works and all that other nonsense. How far is it the actual land that you're proposing at the park?
Yeah.
Okay,
So if
how
we go to
far is it
the, yeah, if we go to, I think there's one of the aerials, I didn't highlight on the park,
It's
but I
about
think one of the,
2.5 blocks.
yeah, I think one of the aerials, yeah. So right there, if you look at the end of the street we're on, 74th Court, so to the east of the yellow, if you keep going up, so by the way, that where that arrow is being moved, I think it's Gisele's moving the arrow. Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're adding street parking there. That's one of the commitments we're doing as part of this application. We're going ahead and adding street parking, which means we're going to improve the sidewalk and ultimately providing for that connectivity, potential future connectivity to the park. And then the park area would be right. There's an entrance there, and you see how that area there is already has exactly. So that area there, which is underutilized from a park standpoint, and I think you said it, Mr. Jimenez, maybe 2-3 blocks. So it would, it could serve two purposes. I mean, it could be that folks park there themselves. I would imagine, just because we're going to have to enter into our contract with the county, that it's actually going to become more of a valet location for us. And it's going to be ideal. Listen, if you've ever valeted your car in anywhere, a lot of times they're parking 7 blocks away and they're running to get it, whatever. So this is actually for valet purposes, very close to the location that we're proposing. But I'd say it's 2 to 3 blocks. I mean, we're certainly not going to go park at Amelia on the other side by, one of the other areas. We're not going to go drive all the way around. It would be right down the street.
So worst case, you're looking at within walking distance.
Oh, yeah,
For
absolutely.
the average Joe, unless he wants a valet or
Yeah, I mean,
possibly
if
even
we-
you may offer a little a little shuttle service.
Yeah, I mean, that's 3 blocks. I mean, again, if you've ever gone to
Yeah.
dinner, you mentioned the Grove, Wynwood,
Right.
parking and walking 3 blocks is, I mean, that's, if you get parking any closer, you consider.
Provide little golf carts to take care of people.
Yeah, I mean, we're open as,
Yeah,
as,
shuttle service, yeah.
as we grow, we're open if that becomes a standalone parking area and folks are gonna park themselves to providing some means of getting back and forth. If it's valet, then, you know, the valets, a lot of times they have a little cart and one drives and they get the car, the other one comes back. I mean, valet operators figure out their world. I'm not gonna get in the middle of
Or
that.
the scooters.
Yeah,
They
the
leave
micro mobi-
scooter,
what's it
the
called?
Micro
mobility.
mobility
Yeah.
vehicles.
You take your car.
Melissa's presentations are far more elaborate than mine. I mean, listen,
Actually, I like that idea of if it goes through
Uh-huh.
with the county, that's a very
Very
viable.
creative.
yeah, it's taken
Solution.
some time. I mean, listen, Deborah's been asking for us to do that since I think the first time we talked to her, maybe a year ago, about doing any retail. It took till a month ago to manage to get, you know, some commissioners to draft an item and take it to the county commission. I mean, it will take a little more time, but we've made great headway.
Yeah.
And there's now an item making its way through the county commission to put into place a plan that will allow for using parks for private parking on a contracted basis. And
And
we'd have to
make
pay for it, you know.
And
we're
they make
okay.
a couple of dollars a month out of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we have to pay for it. We have no objection to that. Again,
Yeah.
I mean, we have no issue with that. We want to find solutions. But we're in that chicken and egg problem. I mean, we don't have to look for solutions if we don't have anything to really service. And so we're trying to do
As far
that.
as I'm concerned, that's a good.
Yeah, well, we've,
We already got the pedestrian entrance to the park.
Yeah.
That before was not there, but I was lucky 2 years ago that I went to visit the area with someone in Miami-Dade County that they want to do some improvements there. And there is a Fulcrum building where they have elderly people living there.
yeah, on
And
the
there
south
was-
side, there's
and there
elderly.
was a poor guy trying to get next to the lake with his walker. So I told her, look at this. He cannot even go through a pedestrian path. He has to go through a service area. And 1 year after they were building
Yeah.
that.
And it was not a paid actor,
It was not what?
a paid actor.
No, I think it was a gentleman who lives, yeah, there's a senior housing, I think it's, you see the white T building, I think that's that's exactly, that's an
Sounds good.
elderly facility.
Let me ask, at what point do, I know you said right now, we're just dealing with the parking and you don't have, a concrete plan for the rooftop, but at what point do we address the noise and all of that?
No, when they submit for the plans, there is a prior process that is called the concurrency and site plan review. So they will need to provide their plans, and if necessary, we will hire our own consultants to look at that plan.
Yeah, well,
But for example, to give you an example, on Factory Town, I don't know if you remember, but
Oh, I remember.
first-
yeah,
Factory,
exactly.
Right next to
Everyone
Factory.
Yeah.
complained. So we spoke to the owner, to the developer, and I don't know what miracle they did, that they do certain things and that they did certain things, oriented everything in a certain way. And by the next event, no one complained.
But Madam,
Well, I
So-
mean,
Yeah.
there was no miracle done, just to put that out there.
yeah, but
It's
this is,
Still terrible.
this is fundamentally different. I mean, Factory Town has got
No
concerts.
one complained. The same way they
Yeah,
complained.
but
Not the same way.
look, I sat through council meetings of residents complaining. I mean, Factory Town
It's a
is
disaster
an outdoor, loud, venue, and they have.
on weeknights.
And they have hundreds, if not thousands of
Yeah.
people attending. I mean, the rooftop here is going to have 150 people, 200 people. Like, I mean,
Okay.
let's keep in context. We're talking about a rooftop lounge, not a concert hall, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, Factory Town brings in, world-class DJs, totally different. I
cool.
mean, this is a rooftop lounge. There's going to be 150 people. Like, the music
Okay.
is not going to be, it's going to be apples and oranges, but the timing will be that we'll provide that sound study and do the barriers and do what we need to do at the time that we're, going to propose a specific use so that we have the equipment. I asked my client, and my client asked the owners of the wharf on the river, who also happen to be friends and clients of mine. And that's the way the city of Miami, and I think I shared with Deborah, when they had gotten approvals there, the city had asked for it up front, and they had said, like, look, we don't know what we're going to do here. And so they submitted it later, because when a user comes in, they'll say, this is the size speaker, this is the noise, this is what we're gonna do. And then
Mm.
you work your way back from that. To do it now, I would have had to have guessed, and
Yeah.
didn't make a lot of sense to do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
But yeah, this isn't Factory Town. I mean, the rooftop lounge here is gonna be 1/20th the size, just
Yeah.
to have a little context.
Just trying to avoid.
No, of
my area
course.
To deal, what my area is dealing with.
Right, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, no. We want to be good neighbors, and mostly because we're also our own neighbors, right? I mean, that plays a big part too.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
As far as the operating hours, you mentioned something at 4:50 AM. Is that operating hours of the establishment or is that drinking hours?
No, we're going to work that in the DOR to make something to try to find an agreement that works for them and
Yeah.
works for the
but
city.
it would be
And
one, I mean,
yeah.
it would fundamentally be one in the same. I mean, we had, like I said, we asked for 24/7 because we did not want to take the Factory Town approach. Create a district and allow 24/7 alcohol anywhere in there. We thought it made more sense to come and ask for one property, and then the next item was asking for the same exact thing. But we're okay, and I spoke to Deborah about this a couple times this week. We're okay keeping it at 450. We're not anticipating needing it. We just wanted some flexibility. That's a place in which if we don't have that flexibility, and if somebody comes in and says, look, it's critical for me because we're going to be a destination for people when they leave, places that close at 3. And if I close at 4:50, I can't make it work. We'll come back. We would have to ask this board and the county and the city council for approval. For now, we can live with 4:50 close time.
And
But-
also while the industrial uses are there, the uses cannot overlap because they start early on with the deliveries, the loading and loading. So it's prudent to stop one activity before the other ones.
Yeah. And so we would clear out, before hopefully there's a rush. And listen, I mean, entertainment venues like this are going to tend to predominantly work more on Friday nights and Saturday nights also, which also hopefully helps that the commercial and industrial uses that remain in the area aren't as active on Saturday and Sunday mornings. I mean, the warehouses aren't operating. And so again, we're confident we can make it work.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions?
I'm convinced.
Wait till you visit it. I'm telling you, I mean, some of these ideas and
Can't wait to get to the rooftop.
absolutely, everybody in the city. I mean, that's what we're trying to create.
I just want to park.
You guys have been great supporters. I mean, I think this board has recommended approval for every one of those residential projects. And I think it's why it's important. It's why it's important that that you all have a say in now adding the the entertainment, the retail, the restaurants. Let's build a little community. Let's just not force these folks here to have to get in their car because where are they going to go? Let's give these 1,500 residents a chance to walk. And then let's give the surrounding area and the rest of Hialeah a much closer place than, Miami Beach or Coconut Grove or Wynwood.
Or
So,
Miami
plus people,
Lakes.
huh?
Or Miami Lakes.
Well, they don't, I mean, but I don't know how many people go to Miami Lakes. Yeah, sure. Doral is one of the biggest. Yeah, I mean, Doral is, and if you think about it, Doral is a place in which the downtown Doral City Place, they haven't thrown up the restaurants and the late night lounges and the bars, in the middle of in the middle of Doral Isles or something. No, they've done them in areas that are predominantly commercial, built out areas, because that's kind of makes more sense for noise and other purposes. So
They've been too busy working on that fire.
that's crazy. That is crazy. 2 football fields. The fire was the size of 2 football fields.
Wow.
Think about that.
All right, any more comments or questions? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the electronic audience? Plus the public hearing, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
With
Conditions.
Yes.
With conditions.
Let's
Second.
see.
In that motion,
Okay, motion, Mr. Gamon. Second by Mr. Casanova and Mrs. Enriquez. Mr. D. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa.
Yes.
Mr. Casanova.
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez.
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez.
Yes.
Mr. Gamon.
Yes.
Item has been approved with conditions. Item
The
number,
The good news is I'm not going to speak in the next one, so you're only going to have to hear from Deborah.
item number 7, rezoning property from M1 Industrial District to C3 and Extended Liberal Commercial District. Variance permit to allow rear setback of 3.6 feet where 15 feet are required. Allow 84 parking spaces where 300 parking spaces are required. Allow a waiver of the minimum landscaping requirements allowing 30 trees where 58 trees are required. allowed a reduced width landscape buffer along West Fourth Avenue, where 7 feet landscape buffer is required, and allowed 3% pervious area where 30% pervious area is required. And grant a special use permit to allow the site to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the connection to planned entertainment events. Property is located at 7551 West Fourth Avenue, Hialeah Zone M1 Industrial District. Applicant Hugo Arza, Esquire, on behalf of Prestige 7551 LLC.
You will need to reintroduce yourself.
Yes, Hugo Arza, 701 Brickell Avenue for the applicant.
Thank you.
I will try to abridge my report since many things are repetitive. I won't mention the Amelia District, you know where it is, so I'll try to do this quick. So the location is at the northeastern intersection of Red Road and West 75th Place. The property is in the land use change pipeline from industrial to commercial in order to retrofit the existing warehouse into a commercial development, including 9 bays. The retrofitted building will have approximately 20,000 square feet of retail use, where the existing business at the site, Balsan, will concentrate its activities, and the remaining 20,000 square feet will be allocated to entertainment uses. To be able to redevelop the site as proposed, the applicant is requesting rezoning from M1 to C3 to make the zoning consistent with the land use and proposed use of the site, and variance to allow 3.6 feet rear setback where 15 are required. Parking variance to allow 84 parking spaces where 300 parking spaces are required, and allow landscape mitigation and reduce pervious area. The same as in 7445 West Fourth Avenue, a site owned by the same party, although the use is desirable and a suitable addition to a residential area at walking distance, developed to attract young residents. The proposed parking availability of 84 parking spaces for a 500 people capacity building in conjunction with 20,000 square feet of retail use raises concern. The rezoning from M1 to C3 is consistent with the proposed use for entertainment and consistent with the commercial land use of the property. However, uses that other than entertainment allowed on C3 zone properties not compatible with this location, such as automotive repair uses, shall be restricted. The landscaping mitigation may be allowed with the commitment that the trees and related number of shrubs will be mitigated as set forth in section 982233. The proposed occupancy requires 300 parking spaces, while only 84 parking spaces may be accommodated on site. Although the applicant, in a submitted letter of intent, proffers overflow parking at other locations owned by the applicant, those locations are at the same time being proffered for another building to be retrofitted for entertainment uses owned by the applicant at 7445 West Fourth Avenue. Accordingly, this property will only provide 28% of the required parking, with 50% allocated to the retail use and 50% allocated to the entertainment use. The only overflow parking that might be considered is the 50% allocated to a commercial use that will be available approximately after 8 p.m. when the business closes. The estimated capacity of the entertainment portion of the building is 500 people with a parking demand of 200 parking spaces. Accordingly, 84 parking spaces available after commercial business hours would satisfy 42% of the parking demand. Since some of the patrons to be served by this proposed entertainment venue live within a half-mile of the site, it would be safe to assume that many might walk to the site, use micromobility devices, or opt for ridership services. However, occupancy shall be limited in relation to the parking availability to 210 people after commercial business hours. During commercial working hours, the parking availability changes, providing only 42 parking spaces for the entertainment use, or 21% of the parking demand, indicating that the maximum capacity at such time shall be limited to 105 persons. While other overflow parking capabilities are explored and retained over time, the capacity during night and day may increase accordingly. The same as in 7445 West Fourth Avenue, site owned by the same party, although the use is desirable and a suitable addition to a residential area at walking distance developed to attract young residents, the proposed parking availability is a concern. The rezoning is consistent with the use and should be approved. The applicant is also requesting a special use permit to operate the site 24 hours a day, while section 669 does not authorize alcoholic beverages between the hours of 4:50 and 8 p.m. Accordingly, this will be adjusted as we spoke for the other case. The recommendation is to approve the application together with the DOR, establishing maximum capacities in relation to available parking as it increases over time. The DOR shall also include the limitation of uses mentioned in the above report, the statements represented by the applicant in its letter of intent, and detailed safeguards to make sure that the public safety, morals, and welfare of the community are protected.
Thank you.
I'm not even gonna ask you, Celis, to pull up the presentation. I'm gonna spare you guys. This is the Balsam building, unless you want to see just show the picture, Celis, out.
Sure.
So this is the existing Balsam building. So any of you have driven on West Fourth. Balsam is a tenant and will remain a tenant for some time. Their lease, is ongoing. And there you see our artistic, and we do want to do that with the funky lettering. I've asked, but they want to kind of try and beautify and bring some like kind of cool art. And so they're gonna work with Balsam to change that. But really what we're doing for this existing building is taking half the building initially, and then ultimately if something, with Balsam were to go away, we could then think about that. But to add, again, entertainment, restaurants, stores or whatever the case may be. The benefit of this site in comparison to the one you just heard is this site actually already has a lot more parking. It has 84 spaces versus 27, so it's a substantial difference. And Balsam will remain here at least for some period of time. And I think that the vision, and again, why these things, it's important to have commonality of ownership, and maybe all of you hearing the applications at the same time, this isn't going to be the location that's likely to have the later night lounge or that aspect of it. And so what it will allow by having the ownership commonality is that, if this one has Balsam, which closes at 8 or 9 o'clock, and has maybe a restaurant that winds down more like at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, that parking will become available. Deborah correctly can't assign it, on a guaranteed basis because it's going to be kind of a juggling act. And we recognize that, but we think we're going to have a lot more flexibility to even utilize these parking spaces later in the evening and once Balsam closes to help supplement some of the shortfall for the other one. And so they work in concert. The idea is to beautify, bring in, coffee shops and lounges and bars and sandwich shops and really kind of like neat places for this community. And so as with the first item, we would respectfully request your recommendation of approval, and so we can get going.
Thank you, sir. Comments or questions? Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the electronic audience? Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve with conditions.
Second.
All right, motion by Mrs. Enriquez, second by Mr. Gamon and Mr. Casanova.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Jimenez,
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Casanova,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa,
Yes.
Mr. D. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Gamon.
Yes.
Item has been approved with conditions.
All right. Thank you all. See you soon. Hope you get out of here.
Item number 9, special use permit to allow the expansion of the neighborhood business district overlay. Variance permit to allow building height of 126 feet where 95 feet is the maximum allowed. Allow 11 stories where 9-story is the minimum allowed. The maximum allowed. And waive massing, setback requirements for building tower and cap. Properties located at 1035 Southeast 5th Street, Hialeah zoned M1 Industrial District. Applicant Giovanni Moyiner on behalf of Olivas Home Corporation.
Name and address, please.
Daniel Martinez with Ramos Martinez Architects, on behalf of the owner.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry for the wait. The property in this application is located at the northeastern intersection of Southeast 5th Street and Southeast 10th Court within an area of warehouses built in the late 50s. The subject property, a 0.54-acre site, is developed with a 4,000 square feet warehouse and a yard. Southeast Fifth Court, where the longest side of the side fronts, is in a deteriorated condition, with some warehouses vacant, others expanding their business into public right-of-way, and waste containers and trash spread throughout the area. In 2016, this area was targeted for redevelopment and was included in an overlay district called Market Station Gateway, incorporated into the City of Hialeah Comprehensive Plan through Ordinance 2016-17 that allows an increased density of 100 units per acre. The site is at a 10-minute walk distance to the Hialeah Market Tri-Rail Station and TOD area, and to the Factory Town Entertainment District. At this time, the applicant is before the city with a proposal to redevelop the site with a new 11-story mixed-use building in compliance with parking regulations. To be able to develop the property as proposed, the applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow the expansion of the MBD regulations into this site, given that this MBD area has not been incorporated into the zoning code, and a variance to allow a building height of 126 feet, where 95 feet is the maximum allowed, and variance to allow 11 stories, where 9 stories is the maximum allowed. The applicant is also requesting to waive massing setback requirements. The proposal includes a new 11-story mixed-use building with 3,700 square feet of commercial space on the first floor, a 6-level parking garage, offices on the 7th floor, and 4 stories with 13 two-bedroom units on each floor. The proposed building is conceived with a contemporary industrial design to match with the surrounding industrial character of the area. The site development incorporates a sidewalk, curb and gutters, and parallel parking along the building frontage, incorporating an urban feel to the area, consistent with the sidewalk and landscape improvements on the property located across Southeast Fifth Street that was redeveloped in 2020. The requested special use permit shall be approved since it is consistent with the overlay district adopted in the comprehensive plan. The height and increased stories variance could also be approved since the proposed building will not sit directly across the residential property. And a volumetric step down to the west may still be achieved when the immediate block to the west gets redeveloped in the future. The proposed project, with its proximity to the Market Station TOD, train station, and Factory Town, will not only incorporate much needed additional living units and retail space, but will also enhance the livability of the area, helping transform a dormant area in disarray into a vibrant district. Recommendation approval.
Thank you. Finally,
Good evening, board. I'm going to keep this short, as the last presentation should always be. I don't want to add too much more. I think Deborah described the project eloquently. I just want to put before you the developer, the owner's intent. One is to incorporate residents into the area. So he's maximized the allowable number of units, but he also requested specifically to make sure that there was sufficient parking. So as opposed to relying on micro anything, he's a little bit old school and would rather there be sufficient parking, not only for the building and the uses in the building, of which there is about 4,000 square feet of retail, 13,000 square feet of office space, but any parking that may be required or may be needed in the vicinity. So that was his intent in the development. And so the building before you plays on the industrial aesthetics of the area, but also introduces residential in an area which has been derelict, and it was a poorly kept industrial site. So I'm here for questions if you have any.
thank you. Comments or questions?
It's 2-bedroom units. They comply with all the parking requirements for the units, for the guest parking, for the commercial, everything.
I take it you're gonna tear down all the those warehouses that are in that area, right?
Well, this site only has one warehouse and a big yard around. The other ones will come in the future.
I believe it was a heavy machinery or a semi-truck repair
Yeah. What's
business
there now,
before.
yeah.
It's all been cleaned out and And it's just sitting vacant.
And they need increased height because remember, they have 6 levels of parking garage.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, that in the Metro Park, it was impossible to make anything to the second floor, whereas here you have 6 floors, so
Well,
I-
he had,
I think that's
this
impressive.
is a bigger side.
It's a
The
bigger
other
site.
side is very small. Remember, the other side that is next to the station has the advantage that is so close to a station, but doesn't have the length that this
Right.
one has.
but I really like that you have 6 parking spaces.
So you will still need micro mobilities to go from level to level.
If you're elderly,
You are laughing, but we are working in a plan for scooters in that area with the county. We have a map and everything. So
Nice.
don't laugh that you will be.
Hey,
you will
listen.
be going there and
That's the-
trying the scooter.
That's the way it's going. I mean, everywhere you go, you see a bunch of these little rental electric scooters just sitting there, they have GPS, you swipe the card and you take off on them. So way to go.
They pick them up at night, like 2 o'clock in the morning, they go finding where they are and recharge.
Recharge them and replace them and whatever, yeah. Good deal. All right, comments or questions? Anyone in the audience? You gotta make it legal, Anyone in the electronic audience? All right, close to the public hearing. It's a pleasure of the board. Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Casanova, second by Mrs. Enriquez. Mr. Jimenez,
yes.
Mr. Ramon,
Yes.
Mr. Di Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Casanova. Mr. Casanova,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Enriquez,
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa.
Yes.
Item has been approved.
Thank you. Good evening.
Sorry for the delay, but hey, we did it.
Another clarification, you will also need the DOR because the MBD properties require the DOR, so someone will need to work with Alex from the
Attorney.
lawyer. So, and ask the lawyer, the owner to get an opinion of title because it will be an opinion of title.
Understood. Thank you, Dora.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good night. Okay, here we go. Now comes the
Mm.
sticky part.
Miscellaneous items not requiring advertising. Item number 10, old business? No,
Yes.
yes,
Can we get bigger envelopes?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's new business.
item number 11, new business.
We have to vote on something because for many years, 20 years, we were all doing the meetings, the second and fourth Wednesday of each month. When the month starts on a Wednesday, the planning and zoning boards don't happen the same the weeks that the council happens. So the problem is that the city clerk has a hard time when she has to make the advertisements, and sometimes one meeting needs to be skipped. So to put all of this in order, we want to see if you want to vote to have the planning and zoning board meetings the same week that the council meetings.
That'd be fantastic.
Most of the year is like that, but there are some odd months that it doesn't happen, so.
Yeah, I think this month it's off, so
Yes,
I like
and
going
then
to the council
in
meetings, but then I
April,
missed
the
it.
Same
'cause-
thing, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So.
I don't have a problem with it. I would suggest which you do that already as it is, that you remind us like the meeting before, like you did last meeting. Oh, by the way, next meetings is gonna be moved over around a little bit. That's my suggestion. Just keep us abreast of
Okay,
what's
well,
going.
yeah, we will announce on each meeting when is the next meeting, and we do know when we read the agenda, we do,
Right.
but if you want, we will remind.
I
you.
just look for the big yellow envelope in my
Okay, yeah.
property.
Okay.
I thought it was an Amazon package, but I'm like, nope, it's better.
Any comments or questions on that suggestion?
Motion to.
We have a motion.
Second?
Okay,
And a second.
motion by Mr. Jimenez, second by Mrs. Enriquez. Mr. Casanova? Mr. Di Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramon?
Yes.
Mr. Ulloa?
Yes.
Mrs. Enriquez?
Yes.
Mr. Jimenez?
Yes.
Okay, motion was approved.
Okay.
So another new business, in 1 or 2 years, you will leave this meeting and you will be able to go to the Amelia Live District
Yes.
and stay there until 4 AM.
Oh, no.
You're very optimistic. Okay,
Correct.
is there anything else? that needs to be brought up? Okay. Meeting's adjourned.